Welcome, everyone. You ready? Good. To the Mount Pleasant Town Council meeting. It is Tuesday, January 10th at the appointed hour of 6 p.m. So glad to see such a full audience and so many people here with us this evening. We have several things on the agenda coming first. We have the prayer and the pledge, and I would ask Chaplain Shane Bowers to please come forward and lead us in the prayer. Mayor Pro Tem Gary Santos, if you will lead us in the pledge.
My friend Mr. DeMora first asked me to lead you on a tiger rag. Let us pray. Father God, we do thank you for this time. We thank you as we go into a new year. Father, the ones that you have ordained over us and the government, we pray that you will give them wisdom to lead us well into the new year and the tough decisions that they have to make. We thank you for each citizen that has come out in support of their government and in this great city that they live in to be a part of the process. And we just pray that you will help everyone to work together in this new year to get things accomplished in a great way that will honor you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain. And Gary?
You're welcome.
Mr. Bagherini, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act? And as we move into the approval of the agenda, I would ask that we make note that I'd like to start with number D. And we'll start with A, and then we'll move to D. We'll have the public hearing, and we'll move to D, and then we will take the presentations from our two citizens task force. So the first thing on the agenda will be number A, and then we will move to D. So I need approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Ms. Farrell?
Yes, good evening. We do have one public hearing this evening. This is the second required public hearing to receive comments on a proposed amendment to the development agreement for Hasseltrack Associate LLC's project known as Central Mount Pleasant Hasseltrack, which is property described as generally located between Benning and Bowman Road, 109 acres, all of which is more fully described on your agenda. The current zoning classification for the subject property is mixed-use plan development, which includes residential, commercial, institutional, and recreational uses, all of which will not change with this amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this issue. Is there anyone here that would like to address this council on this public hearing? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed. And we'll move forward to number D, which is presentation of Cultural Arts and Pride Committee Civic Pride Award.
Mayor, council members, would you join me up front, please? Ms. Harper.
Thank you, Mr. DeMora. Town Council, I would like to call up Kenda Sweet. She is the chair of the Culture, Arts, and Pride Commission. We would like to give our Civic Pride Award for 2016.
Hey, hello, welcome. Thank you.
Are there any other CAP members here? Join me if you are. Seeing none, I will come forward. We have an annual award that we give out, and we identify a business or organization in Mount Pleasant that goes above and beyond in beautification of their exterior. And this year, we would like to give this award to the Ion Assembly to receive this 2016 Civic Pride Award for their outstanding efforts in landscaping and beautification of their entrance and surrounding areas. So I think we have a couple of people here. Bruce, are you here? Yes. Hi. And Mike, are you here? Wonderful. Anybody else who's actually also part of the HOA?
Join us right here.
Ever come on up?
Yeah. Nice to see you. Great.
On behalf of the CAP Commission, we want to thank you, and we appreciate your commitment to our community for the beautification efforts that you have made for the Ion community. And thank you. We love the entrance, and we make it beautiful every year.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tony wouldn't do it.
1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilmember Garrett, would you lead us, please, in the Moultrie Mock Trial Team recognition?
Sure.
Thank you.
We heard there were exams. We really, part of the moving was there was exams, so we didn't want to keep any of you out. So you have plenty of time to study, no excuses for bad grades.
Well, we have a brand new national champion, as you know, but I'm here tonight with the honor of recognizing a state champion here in Mount Pleasant, the Moultrie Middle School Mock Trial Team. Our attorney coaches were Marie Louise Ramsdale and Audrey Brown, Moultrie teachers Kathleen Lee, Kelly Hoodoo, and the Moultrie principal Ryan Comeback. Can y'all come up here, please? While they're walking up, let me tell you a little bit about this group of young folks that they've assembled that are here tonight. Over the last 3 months, Moultrie Middle School Mock Trial Team put in countless hours learning about the judicial process. Student attorneys spanning 6th through 8th grades learned how to give opening and closing statements, direct and cross-examinations, and how to introduce evidence. They even had to learn witness testimony and defend it against a cross-examination they had never heard before from the opposing team. 12 out of 31 teams advanced in the regional competition to the state competition, which was held at the Mark H. Westbrook Lexington County Judicial Center on December 2nd and 3rd. The team of 13 participants competed in 4 intense 2-hour trials over a 2-day period. Moultrie Middle went up against Chapin Middle in the championship, bringing the first place finish and the state title home to the Low Country. Let's give it up. The young folks and bring them up, if you don't mind. And you'll take that home. That's their names. I hope that's all of them.
In Moultrie Middle School, can my team please stand?
Y'all come on up. They'll come on up to the stage.
Come on up and I'll she wants you up here. Last scene.
Yeah. They're gonna feel like attorneys. We gotta get used to standing up here. Shelby, you're good. You're good. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, some of you I'm going to have to put your last name in. We have Finley Palmer, Addison Fisher, Addison Thayer, Ansel Diestrick, I'm skipping people, Maris Farrow, Whit Enots, Emma Nody, Joy Hatzberg, Aaron Burns, and Lainey Wynn.
Yay.
I had to do that.
We could have just let these fine young folks introduce themselves.
That might have gone more smoothly. I promise I do know my team.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Remember, not guilty.
Not all.
Depositions.
And I know y'all have exams, so, feel free to go home and study.
Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, the last item before our presentations from the task forces is a longevity award honoring one of our special employees, and Chief Williams will lead us in that.
Captain Glory Gooden, would you come up, please? Madam Mayor, Council, wonderful audience, I have the pleasure to introduce Glory Gooden, who is one of our captains at our fire station on Bowman Road. Captain Gooden has a distinction of being a first in a lot of our situation in the fire department. She is part of our first recruit class. Matter of fact, I think she is the first paramedic we had in the fire department. And also one of her jobs is she's one of our acting battalion chiefs. Glory has served in various capacities in the department for the last 20 years. And from being a paramedic to a senior captain to acting as a duty chief. Glory has done an outstanding job, not only in the fire department, but also raising a wonderful family, being a wonderful mother, but also a sounding board. So it's people like Glory that we have here in this town that make my department in this town a wonderful organization to work for. And so once again, I want to introduce and also congratulate you, Glory, for 20 outstanding years, and thank you very much.
I'm sure they'd like to take hands. We are honored in this community to have so many citizens who are willing to step up and serve when we have hard tasks, and they devote the extra time and the extra talent. We have two of those task force who are going to give us presentations tonight. So the first task force, our former councilwoman and former Mayor Pro Tem, is Thomasina Stokes Marshall. If you'd come forward and give us your Affordable Housing Task Force presentation. Welcome, Thomasina.
Thank you for that warm welcome. Mayor Page, council members, members of our community, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you with recommendations from our Affordable Housing Task Force. Just before I left council, a little bit more than a year ago, our mayor and council decided that they wanted me to chair the Affordable Housing Task Force Committee. That committee was convened in March of 2016. There were a total of 13 members, which included myself. The members on that committee represented a number of different areas that could focus and did focus on gathering and putting together information that we could present to council for their consideration. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and council for allowing me the opportunity to do this. Second of all, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize those members that served on the committee with me. I believe most of them are here this evening. Mr. Benji Cook. Would you please stand? Thank you. Benji served as the vice chair of the task force committee. Stephanie Blunt, I don't know that she's with us this evening, I haven't seen her. Stephanie is with the Trident Area Department on Aging. Daniel Brock. Okay, Chris Brooks. Chris, if folks don't know him, he is the ED over at East Cooper Meals on Wheels. Rich Estes. Rebecca Unholt. Dr. Sarah Jacobs. Michael Meyer. Jack Richardson. Leo Russo. Debbie Wade. And Skipper Wood. I'd like to thank all of them because each and every one of them made significant contribution to this process. You guys can have a seat. Thank you. when we initially convened the committee, what we realized was that there was a tremendous amount of work and research that needed to be done. So what we did, we divided the committee up into subcommittees, and each subcommittee had a chair. The areas that the focus for each subcommittee was regulatory, financial, housing needs, and the stakeholders. The subcommittees have provided, and they will be providing you with the information that their committee has gathered and researched over the past 8 to 9 months. One of the things that, it's a tremendous amount of information. This by no means was an easy task. The fact is affordable housing needed in the town of Mount Pleasant? We believe it is. We believe that we've worked hard to gather information that can inform our leaders in a manner that we can work together to make this a reality. So one of the things, and I'm going to turn this over to the subcommittees to do their chairs to do the presentation. One of the things I'd like to ask council to do is, as I said, it's a tremendous amount of information. We do not expect for you to take any kind of actions on it whatsoever this evening. The information we are providing is for you as a council to decipher and analyze over a period of time. And ultimately, what we would like to ask you to give consideration is to send the recommendations to Planning Committee, where we can tear it apart and ultimately come up with a project that can work for all of us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start out with our first presenter, and that will be Rich Estes. Thank you very much.
My name's Rich Estes. I headed up the stakeholder subcommittee, kind of the information gatherer, if you will, for our committee. And when we started this project, if you will, I realized that solving the issue of affordable housing in a town like Mount Pleasant was really no easy task. And so it took a lot of patience. So thank you for giving us the time to work through all these details. And it took a team effort, so thanks to all my committee members for all your help in working this out. As we really dove into the heart of the issues of affordable housing, we discovered some unbelievable statistics I want to share with you tonight. Something near and dear to our heart, traffic, okay? So I'm in traffic, I read about traffic. Traffic is a part of our daily lives. So where does all this traffic come from? We know it's from a growing population, but it's also from the 72% of all the employees that work in Mount Pleasant who don't live in Mount Pleasant, okay? So if you see someone beside you at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, there's 72% chance they live in Hanahan or Somerville or North Charleston, not from Mount Pleasant. Digging a little bit deeper into the statistics, this made a lot of sense to me. 35% of our jobs in Mount Pleasant are in retail, accommodation, and food services, followed by 17% in the healthcare business. Makes a lot of sense. Most of what's in Mount Pleasant is serving our residents and serving the tourists that visit our town. It shouldn't surprise you that a lot of people that work here can't afford to buy a home here. This picture was taken from Realtor.com Sunday evening, and today, as we sit here talking about affordable housing, the median listing price for all single-family condo and townhomes in the town of Mount Pleasant is about to hit $500,000, okay? In 2015, CTAR told us that we were at $401,000. So in less than 2 years, we're gonna eclipse a $100,000 gain. Let's talk about some other people important in Mount Pleasant. Workers in over 70% of the total jobs in our town earn less than $3,333 a month. And 33% earn less than $1,250 a month. I was really astounded by these numbers. So when you talk about our school teachers, who earn average of $2,888 a month, and our firefighters, who earn $2,600 a month, and our policemen, earning an average of $3,100 a month. It's no wonder they can't afford the houses in Mount Pleasant, excuse me. This means that a married policeman and teacher in our town, I gotta think there are a few of those, combined income doesn't actually reach our median household income for Mount Pleasant of $76,000. If it did, they could only afford a $270,000 home, and good luck finding those in Mount Pleasant right now. So what we're essentially telling our public safety and our school teachers is that you can't afford to live here, and you should drive here to work. You should also find it not surprising that 60% of the town's employees don't live in Mount Pleasant. Another troubling section of our population in Mount Pleasant is the 65 and older community, which is the fastest growing segment, not in just our town, but in the country. As some of our committee members did their research, we heard a real sense of worry from our seniors. Some of them were worried because their incomes becoming fixed. They aren't sure of how they're going to stay in their home. Others felt that they would need to downsize, and the available inventory for them to age in place was very limited without going into a nursing facility. The feedback we received from the community during our 8 months was amazing. Not only did we meet with hundreds of community leaders and businesses, we decided we needed to do a larger volume gauge of the pulse of our residents, so we launched a public survey. The answers that came out of the survey were really telling, but I thought the most amazing thing was that 811 people in Mount Pleasant actually filled it out. But we were extremely happy with that. For the first 2 months of our subcommittee, our members of the committee really grappled with this question, and this is something we posed to every member on that survey. Do you think the town of Mount Pleasant government should be involved in facilitating affordable and workforce housing? A resounding 73% said yes. The next question we wanted to know more about was, which of the following would you support in addressing the affordability problems in Mount Pleasant? The answer choices range from increasing taxes, public bond referendums, increasing density, but 66%, the vast majority of people, chose require new developments to include affordable housing. They thought that was a good idea. So where in Mount Pleasant do you think these survey participants thought that we should make affordable housing? This was an open-ended question, so there's literally 800 separate responses. But what we could really glean from that information was all over, throughout the town, mixed in, near schools, jobs, and transportation. So they felt like it really needed to be not just in one place, not at the end of town, but everywhere. We also surveyed business managers and business leaders, from big box stores like Target to restaurants on Chim Creek. And 64% of those business leaders felt like their employees finding affordable housing in Mount Pleasant was a problem. That's not surprising. But they also felt that that was contributing to their turnover and filling some of the positions, because their employees and the people even applying for the jobs having to take the bus from North Charleston, and it took so long to get to work. So lastly, the big question we left open-ended on the survey was, what does affordable housing mean to you? And I would encourage you to read your whole package and look at some of these responses, because they're really, really interesting. As you read the responses, you will likely realize very quickly what we did, that there's a huge disconnect between what the public thinks affordable housing is and what it really is today. One comment a respondent left really struck me. They said it's ghetto living. Okay? So I think there's a large part of the public out there that really thinks this, that that's what they remember, Section 8 housing and individualized communities where there's a lot of crime and problems. So they're scared about affordable housing. Today, affordable housing projects are safe, happy, energy efficient new homes and apartments integrated into the fabric of our community, not singled out. Not sure about you, but the look on Susan's face tells me she does not live in the ghetto. She is extremely happy. This is downtown. downtown Charleston. These families enjoying a Christmas celebration at Carriage Hill Landing does not look like ghetto living to me. There's a real problem with the public's perception of affordable housing, and your full task force committee report has some great ideas on how we can start solving it. The last thing I want to cover before I hand it over to Benji Cook is that the rapid development we've experienced in the past few years is taking a toll on some of our diverse historic fabric of the community. Communities like 6 Mile and Snowden, to name a few, are in the crosshairs of new development, and we need to make sure we protect our community heritage. What does this have to do with affordable housing, you're asking? Well, over time, the local community is displaced, and the homes built there are too expensive for the people living there, or previously living there, to even consider staying. Density restrictions are not enough in these important communities to ensure we maintain our community's rich diversity. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Benji Cook.
Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Benji Cook, and I was asked to work along with Thomasina and the others, and I was the head of our regulatory committee, which we wanted to take a microscope and look at some of the challenges, aside from some of the statistics Rich shared with you tonight, that we deal with here in the town that are some of the roadblocks that are in front of us that we're going to have to work through to try to make some sense of this. One of the things is traffic. Rich touched on that, and we all know we drive across these bridges and we see them every day. We're bound by the ocean and Francis Marion to the north and the Wando River to the west, and it pushes traffic along these corridors where some of the zoning and that we have, the changes that we've experienced in the zoning code here in the last year or so, that it's pulled some of the bonus densities out of some of these corridors where a lot of these the comp plan intended for some of these densities to be built. Our municipal boundaries, as you can see, here's a slide here. We're getting to a space in Mount Pleasant where we are just about built out. We're almost into Allendale, and we've gone up 41 to the Wando River. So outside of the major plantations, there's not a whole lot of land left. So being able to work with the land that we do have and find creative ways to expand on the community nodes, which is my next slide, and one thing that Rich touched on as well. These were areas that, and this is a quote from the 2014 comp plan, to promote appropriate infill redevelopment while protecting the context of the existing neighborhoods. And that's something that as we transition into some of the recommendations that we hope you guys will take an opportunity to look at. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Wade, who's going to tell you a little bit about what we'd like to see next. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji.
My name is Debbie Wade, and I was the chair of the financial subcommittee. Our job was to figure out how to finance affordable housing and what kind of resources are out there to help us finance it. What we decided was it was important for the town to appoint a affordable housing committee, which could be made up of 5 to 7 members, and this committee would be ongoing. They would be tasked with creating a new nonprofit in Mount Pleasant, a nonprofit whose mission would be affordable housing development and working with the town on the best ways to do that. They would also look into creating a community land trust in Mount Pleasant, and that's a long, large subject, so I won't go into that right now, but that is one way of doing affordable housing, and it's been very effective in many places throughout the country. Next slide. Okay. We also would like to have Mount Pleasant add a new staff person to the planning department, whose job would be to work with affordable housing, developers who want to create affordable housing within their market rate projects, and to pursue public-private partnerships. That would include maybe nonprofits working with for-profit developers on creating affordable housing. We would also like to ask the town of Mount Pleasant to fund 2 years of operations for this new nonprofit. That would cover the staff salary of one individual and the operating overhead for that period of time. That would give this nonprofit an opportunity to be able to identify other resources that they could use to cover their expenses and to develop a working plan, policies, and procedures for developing affordable housing. As time goes on and they are able to do affordable housing development, they can use the fees associated with it and the cash flow from doing rental properties to cover more and more of their overhead as time goes on, as well as, grants and foundations that may be able to assist as well. This is the end of our presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. Any questions from the council? Thank you very much. Thank you. We do have one person signed up to speak on this issue.
Dan Ligon?
Welcome, Dan. Welcome to the council meeting. We'll give you 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mayor Page and council members. My name is Dan Ligon, and for the last 30 years, I have been trying to solve the problems that you've learned about tonight in Mount Pleasant, all across South Carolina, as a developer of affordable housing. I'd like to share 4 quick things with you. One, speaking on behalf of myself and all the colleagues that we have in this industry in South Carolina, we stand ready to have a dialogue with you council members individually or even collectively as you explore these issues that the task force has brought before you. In the report, which is a wonderful report, one of the best I've seen, and I've seen a lot of different types of efforts like this. One of the, as you'll see in there are a lot of graphs, charts, and statistics, which can be bone-chilling at some point. The one statistic that answers the question to me about why should Mount Pleasant be concerned about this problem. My company is based in North Charleston. And in North Charleston, the average home price is $230,000 or so. The average starter home for a new family starting out is about $100,000. So the ratio is about 2 to 1. And as you saw from the slide earlier, the average home price here is $500,000. That average starter home is still $100,000. The ratio becomes 5 to 1. And as depressing as that ratio sounds, I'd like to bring to you the good news is this problem is solvable, because people like myself solve this problem every day. The key to solving the problem in a nutshell is subsidies. Obviously, if you understand economics, you all do. You have to buy down the cost of a house in order to get it to where a new family can afford to live in Mount Pleasant. So I think that as you study through this, one of my favorite sources of subsidy would be the Real Estate Act. If you say the problem comes from an overheated real estate market, you could argue that in Mount Pleasant. Well, I think you need a market-based solution to the problem, such that when you have buyers and sellers of $1 million homes here in Carolina Park or wherever, as you know, you have closing costs, and I think a surcharge on the closing costs could go into a local trust fund, and then out of those local funds, the policemen, the firemen, the EMS workers, the people that every day, as part of their job description, is to put their life at risk to protect the citizens in Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Ligon. I don't mean to cut you so short, but we have a lot of things on the agenda tonight, and I've given you an additional minute, so I certainly appreciate it. We look forward to getting your
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. We're going to move right on with our next presentation. We have the Shem Creek Task Force presentation. And again, obviously a Clemson fan, go Tigers. Former Mayor Cheryl Woods Flowers has graciously hosted the Town of Mount Pleasant Shem Creek Task Force, and we look forward to your information. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thanks so much for having me. I do oppose these tall microphones, though, I'll tell you. It really made me look short, Mayor.
I'm so sorry.
She did it on purpose. She did. Mayor, members of council, and the public, thanks so much for having me here tonight, and thank you for allowing me to be part of one of the most passionate groups of people that I think I have ever had the pleasure of working with. There are 15 of us, and somehow I got elected to chair this group, and I don't know, maybe they thought I was the least passionate, but these folks were very serious about what they did. We started meeting in July of 2016, and we met every month. It's a group of 15 again, and we met July, August, September, November, and January. We were to wrap up in December, but we were getting a little close to Christmas, so we went ahead and moved it on into January. And we were tasked with what some of us may have thought was going to be not such a big apple to eat. But the issue of Shem Creek, for those of you that have been here even just a short period of time, you know that there are a multiplicity of issues that surround the creek, not just the water, but all of the uses, the traffic, the zoning, FEMA regs, just a whole group of things that every time you open one thing, something else jumps out. So we divided it up into a group of issues and took each issue one at a time and went over and talked about the concerns, talked about what the needs were, and actually talked about what we thought some things that might be the solutions. Our really most passionate part, though, was our belief that we wanted to preserve the unique history of the area of the creek. We believe that the heart and soul intricately lies in the area of Shem Creek and the surrounding area, and every person on that committee passionately believed that it's critical that we do something to make sure that the area is preserved and that we take care of whatever issues we are allowed to take care of. The people on the committee represented various occupations, interests, and experience in Shem Creek and the surrounding areas. There were people that have lived here since Jesus was a boy, like me, and then there are people that just moved here. So, you know, it was really a fairly diverse group of people with different interests. We have one, I think we only have one member that is here with us tonight. Elizabeth Andrag, if you would stand up. Elizabeth is one of our committee members, and Mayor, y'all got the list of the rest of them, so I won't take your time and meet with them. I know you've got a long agenda, and although your council meetings are not near as long as what mine used to be, I know that you would like to go home, especially if you stayed up till 2:30 in the morning like I did. So the topics that we went over were, we talked about the visual impact, which is the built environment. We talked about quality of life, which, you know, you're looking at the green space, the impact of the infrastructure and infrastructure management, adequacy of public access, which is a huge issue all over town. We know that. The commercial activity. We talked about public safety. We talked about not just traffic, but parking, public safety with the diverse interests, the diverse uses on the creek, and how sometimes those things that conflict. You don't have to be there long before you can see that some people may be in a little bit of danger when they're on the creek doing certain things if they don't understand the ramifications of the other things that are going on. So we talked about that, and then we also, once again, talked about preservation, the historical issues, the water quality, and the stormwater runoff of the entire watershed basin. We put together what we believe should be the Shem Creek study area, and y'all actually have a copy of that map in your packets. I'm assuming all this is available on the website too for the public. Am I right?
It will be.
It will be. We wanted to make sure council had it first.
Thank you. So it will be. With our principal recommendation in mind, we develop, again, a list of concerns for each discussion topic. We are requesting that this list of concerns be provided to a consultant that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. I'm not going to go through this whole thing because y'all know that it's rather lengthy. We don't have any pretty pictures like y'all did, Thomasina. I'm kind of jealous. We don't have any of those. We have lots of lengthy paragraphs. But in conclusion, we recognize the need to balance the uses in around Shem Creek so that we can preserve what is probably the most treasured part of the town of Mount Pleasant, at least one of the most treasured parts of the town of Mount Pleasant. We generally agree that the creek and the creekside businesses should remain principally as a working creek. We want it to remain that way in perpetuity. We hope that the community will make it a priority to promote Shem Creek by supporting the local seafood industry and participate in preserving the creek by allowing it to operate the way it has through history, again, which is a working creek. So after careful consideration and much discussion, the Shem Creek Task Force is respectfully requesting that Town Council secure appropriate funding and hire a professional consultant to master plan the Shem Creek study area as designated by that map. The task force also requests that the group remain intact and involved in the master planning process. In anticipation of the master planning process, the task force offers its list of concerns and narrative identified in this report and requests that these concerns be provided to the consultant and serve as the basis for development of that master plan. The members of the Shem Creek Task Force are really grateful to Mayor Page and Mount Pleasant Town Council for bringing this group together and allowing us to talk about this important subject. We remain committed to the goal of preserving, promoting, and protecting the unique history, nature, and economy of the Shem Creek study area. And with that, I'll wrap up and see if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Woods Flowers.
Thanks.
And thank you for the whole committee and all the hard work you did. Elizabeth, it's nice to have you here as well. I know how committed you are to the creek. Is there anyone that has questions for Ms. Woods Flowers? Yes, sir. Sorry, I saw you first. Mr. Owens.
It better be easy, man. I'm tired.
It is.
Oh, that's good. Go ahead.
We just really want to thank you for all the work and effort you put into this. We've seen some of the goals that you've set forward.
It's pretty aggressive.
They are very aggressive and something that's needed. We appreciate the consideration for both the businesses and homeowners and also the recreational uses there. Y'all have put together a comprehensive report. I just want to thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff that was assigned to us because we were kind of a wild group and I'm not so sure that we were always easy to manage. But Lauren, where is Lauren?
All the way in the back in the orange
All the way
suit.
back. Lauren just did a great job for us and Christine also for taking minutes. I sometimes felt sorry for Christine taking our minutes because I talk a little fast and everybody else there was at the same time. I think we sometimes had 5 people trying to talk at the same time. But thank you for allowing them to work with us, and I appreciate so much you allowing us to be involved in this.
Thank you. Mr. Smith had a comment or a question as well.
Just a quick question, Madam Mayor, it's always good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Echo all of Councilman's comments earlier, so I won't repeat them, but just one bit, I know that you are a woman of detail, of great detail. And I just am a little remiss that you made reference to, you stayed up to 2:30 a.m. I'm aware that the game ended shortly after midnight, Madam Mayor. Any details?
Yeah, I had a big date with ESPN.
Congratulations on your
I
win.
appreciate you so much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We'll take both of these reports as information tonight, and Mr. Owens, you have a comment?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to just make a motion to accept both reports in their totality. I think they're noteworthy to at least be put on the record to accept each.
A second.
Thank you so much. I have a motion and a second to accept the reports as full. Is there any other questions or comments from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to make a motion to request staff put together an RFP for a consultant to provide the scope of work and costs associated with the report by the Shin Creek Task Force. I would ask staff to coordinate with the task force and return their findings within approximately 90 days.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to task staff to take the Shin Creek Task Force report back and make a recommendation for a proposal for a consultant. And so I have a motion and a second for that. And any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Garch?
Thank you for that motion. Second, Mr. Demora, I'm not sure if you knew that was coming. Is this something you're prepared to do in that time frame? You're comfortable?
I'm very comfortable with it, sir. We would get through Ms. Sims, we would start working with Chairwoman Woods Flowers and any member of the task force she deems appropriate to craft the scope of services. And then we would shop it either to a on-call consultant that we have if they are qualified, or we'd have to go out and go through our formal procurement process to get one, which the time frame is more than reasonable to handle.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman, I noticed in your motion, in the conclusion, there was a recommendation. Your motion does not include all of the recommendations. Was that intentionally, unintentionally, or were you talking a little bit about those items that were left out?
No, it was intentional not to make any recommendations that staff have the flexibility to bring that back to council.
Very good. And just one other question, that would be staff making that decision without any input from the elected body. So my question would be, you wouldn't go to a committee of elected body, staff would be making that decision solely on their own on this motion?
Staff will be working with the existing task forces in place for this.
I want to be on the record, I think it's a yeoman's job. Great work on this. I just, a little concerned, council members and mayor, that we're asking staff to go through and decide the scope of this work and hire and make a recommendation on the consultant.
They're bringing it back to council to act.
Very good. And then that's what we would have at a full council meeting. It would not go to any committees for vetting.
It could. It could. It's open.
If we could maybe include that in the consideration that it goes to a committee, just so we can have an opportunity to discuss it before a full council meeting, would be a preference, if that's the will of the body.
I think it'd be appropriate if Mr. Owens would amend his motion.
Yeah, I would be happy to amend the motion and send it to the planning committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll amend my second.
Thank you.
Okay, are you good, Ms. Barrett? Yes. Mr. Pagliariti?
Thank you.
Perhaps just from a nudge in my ear from the town administrator, perhaps since it will be an RFP, perhaps we would consider, instead of going to planning, that we would go to the bids and purchases committee, because there'll be a decision to spend money.
Okay.
So could I ask you to further amend your?
Sure.
I'll further amend my second.
Thank you. So now that we're at the bottom of that, and we'll have a recommendation from staff within 90 days is the request, and that will come back in a form of RFP with a scope of work, working with the task force, and it'll go to bids and purchases for a recommendation.
One more thing, please, members of council. We will amend our plans. We have plans at the retreat to propose to you the mid-year budget adjustments, and we'll make amendments to those to include a placeholder for, and we'll be guessing at this point, but an amount of money that we could reserve to fund such a consultant.
Right.
Great. So I have a motion and a second covering the Shin Creek Task Force. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Now moving forward to the good
Madam
work.
Mayor, I'm going to leave. I just want to thank y'all so much on behalf of the committee for allowing this to go forward. It really is going to mean a lot to them. I appreciate it so much.
Well, Madam Mayor,
Shin Creek thanks you too.
go get some rest.
Actually, I'm not really getting them rest.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Now that we've dealt with the Shin Creek Task Force, I would like to have some consideration of the Affordable Housing Task Force and what we will do going forward with the recommendations coming out of that committee.
I believe it was a request of the chair of that committee to have it go to the planning committee of council. So therefore, I'm happy to move that go to the planning committee starting at our next regular planning committee
Thank you, Mr. Garch. That's what I was looking for. So I have a motion and a second. Ms. Thomasina Starks Marshall, do you have a comment? That was the request, correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilman, yes, that was the request, but I'd like to think that council would give the Affordable Task Force Housing Committee and all of the work that you did, the same kind of consideration that you're giving to the task force for Shem Creek.
Thank you, Ms. Stokes Marshall. That's why it was so important for me to get a motion to move this forward so that we can work on the recommendations that y'all did hard work for a year. And I totally agree with you that that's very important. That's why I wanted to get it back in motion. So we now have a motion and a second.
Okay, so, and just like council is discussing, you have the retreat coming up, you have the budget coming up, and you're taking into consideration doing an RFP. Where, on behalf of all of the work that the Affordable Task Force Housing Committee did, I'd just like to ask for the same consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Stokes Marshall, and I believe that the Planning Committee could certainly come up with a recommendation. Your report is 188 pages, and I will tell you that I have gotten through the majority of the 188 pages, but not all the comments, and I look forward to having the time before the Planning Committee to have my input as well, and I know that committee will do a great job, so thank you, and thank your committee as well. So any other comments or questions for Ms. Stokes?
Also, I was neglectful on behalf of the staff that assisted our committee to do the work. Our planning director, Christine Farrell, and Charlotte Cannon, they were very effective in their support.
Well, you know, I think we got the best staff in the state, so that's an easy one. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Could you restate the motion just to see if we're clear on?
The motion is to take the information that was given and the recommendations that were made here from that task force to the planning committee at the next scheduled planning committee meeting.
All right, and may I ask, would it go from the, whatever action or recommendations they make, would it go from there to the planning commission and then back?
It would depend on what the committee decided, sir. So whatever vote was taken in the committee, they could certainly take it to the commission, they could certainly take it to full council for consideration.
Got it, thank you.
And they could ask to have it back at committee again. So it would certainly be up to the planning committee for that to be decided. Any other questions? Mr. Smith, you good?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to respond to what I feel is a concern, that my only reason for not asking for a modification for funds to be considered at this time, because of the scope of the recommendations that are in this, to include adding a staff position, creating a 501c nonprofit housing development corporation, and a second creation of a community land trust. The scope of those recommendations, which all are something I could easily get behind, are too important to me to throw money at to hire a consultant in comparison to the motion that was made earlier. While they're both on the same night, I view them as significantly different.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate that. And I think that we're not only committed to having a solid conversation about what it means for people to be able to live in our community. How can they afford that? Not only our seniors, but the people who work here. So I certainly concur. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Thank you very much. And again, we appreciate y'all's work. Item number 6 on the agenda is the approval of, I'm sorry, I'm kind of confused because we had other awards. Approval of the committee minutes from the December 13th, 2016.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes and the financial statement. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Before we move into correspondence and public statements, I would like to note, I forgot to note earlier for the record, Mr. Brimmer was tied up for out of town. He was out of town at a meeting. He anticipates that he will be here. He wasn't sure what his travel time would be. Correspondence and public statements. The first thing, I believe, Mr. Bustos, you made a recommendation for this citizen to give us a presentation?
Yes, is Mr. Marion here? David Marion? Since he's not here, I suppose there'll be no presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Farrell, you're up. We have several people signed to speak.
Chris Boyle?
You gotta get me quicker, I'm ready to move on, you know?
Hey, my name's Chris Hoyle. I'm a resident of Grassy Creek, 295 Shoals Drive. I'm the former president of the HOA over there, but the reason I'm here actually tonight is my colleagues from Clemson feel like a football game is more important than our town council meeting. So I'm filling in for my buddy Gus tonight, who put together these slides, and I'll go through them very quickly. So what I'm requesting is serious consideration for allocation of funds for an addition of a sidewalk on Seacoast Parkway. Grassy Creek consists of 136 homes. Ottawa was just approved for the building of 136 homes. So collectively, we've got 272 homes. And if you're familiar with the area, Bell Hall Parkway, Paul Foster Road, Bell Point Drive all have sidewalks. However, Seacoast Parkway does not. So what I'll do is quickly show you some slides of some pedestrians and bikers. Gus had a video, and unfortunately the video is not going to show, but if you were driving, this is his morning commute, and it's 30 seconds of sun blindness. Go to the next slide. This is a lot of the double lane to avoid bikers and pedestrians. Next slide. Pedestrians. It's a very dangerous situation, and we ask at your upcoming retreat you give serious considerations for a sidewalk on Seacoast Parkway.
Well, Chris, thank you very much. Just for your information, the Transportation Committee of Town Council took it up at our last committee meeting last week. We approved the transportation sales tax dollars from Charleston County, and we moved you from number 6 to number 3. So we understand the importance of sidewalks on Grassy Creek, and I want to thank the Transportation Committee for that. Mr. Santos?
I just want to ask you, we met with the Grassy Creek folks, the town did, and our staff, and we talked about these issues. Clearly, as you said, it's a dangerous road. Even if there's sidewalks there, the sun still gets in your eyes. It's a dangerous road. We talked about the possibility of having a cut through from one neighborhood to the other, and then so that they can actually have access to Bell Hall, to our recreation center, to the stores and things like that. It would take them off of that road, which as you said was dangerous. Do you know if they've made any progress with that yet?
I'm not sure. I'm not on the HOA any longer. I was at the meeting you're speaking of.
Yeah, I thought you were, yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure. I guess that's
I mean, it just seemed to me, because then you could have the kids ride, up to their school or to the recreation center through the neighborhoods instead of being out on that road, which you clearly said the sun blinds you. Right. Same with those folks who are exercising, people who want to just ride their bikes up to the store or things like that. Seems to me like it would give that interconnectivity. It'd be a lot safer for them to get them off that fast lane, that road. So I'd certainly like to know what the homeowners association and those folks think, so that we as a town can look at doing some option like that to take them off of that road that clearly you said is very dangerous.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks. I'll bring that.
We'll give you 2 minutes to address the council. Welcome to the town council meeting.
Thank you. I didn't think I'd get a chance to speak into a microphone. It's very exciting. I represent Smoke Barbecue, the Smoke Barbecue family, and purely the American dream. I was born and raised here in Charleston. I started Smoke as a food truck. I never knew that within 3 years we would be opening up our second location here in Mount Pleasant. This is one of the most beautiful communities in America. There are so many serious, pressing things on the docket tonight. It just really opened my eyes to how important and huge it is to run a city and a community like this. Art is what allows us to go home and sleep at night. It opens our eyes to beauty. It opens our minds to interpretation. That is what makes us human. The art on the side of Smoke Barbecue, we never thought that it would disrupt and cause such an outcry. That is because us as people, we need this art to process our lives daily. The art on Smoke is of a riverscape. It mirrors that we wake up to every single morning. On the Mows, their mural it's cute, it's fun, it's open to interpretation. It is important to preserve. It is an international work of art, and it would be a crime to destroy it. I just want to thank everybody here for coming together so swiftly to save these priceless works of art. I've run into no resistance, and I just appreciate being here. I would like to say, though, that as you guys organize to solve this issue, that you do allow a pathway for businesses like mine to go ahead and apply for our initial sign permits during the process of working this out. I know it'll be treated fairly, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Roland.
Barry Wolf.
Welcome, Barry. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Barry Wolf, 1468 Pocahontas Street. First of all, I'd like to thank the Affordable Housing Task Force for the work they did. I think it's incredible. I'm unfortunately, and I hope something really positive can come out of it. I think that unfortunately we gave a lot of that away in a lot of what we've developed prior to this, and you got 6,000 housing units that are planned for this community, and I'm just not sure how you unring the bell, although I hope you can do it. I honestly do. In regards to the mural issue, which I think we do have bigger and better things to deal with in that. A sign definition in our town ordinance is anything, basically anything that attracts the attention of others. You can ride up and down Coleman Boulevard any day of the week and find, and Kent could find 20 violations of our ordinance. If we change anything, if we do something, let's make sure that we do it fairly and it is enforced equally and it is equitable for everybody in the town of Mount Pleasant.
Valerie Goodry.
Welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
Nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Very nervous.
You're among friends. You might get nervous when I tell you you have 2 minutes and we're putting a timer on, but I'm not trying to put any stress into the situation.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Page and our councilman. I just want to thank you for your time and service to our community. I'm here today to speak about Area 21, for which there's pending litigation, because I haven't had the opportunity, just like almost all of my neighbors, to communicate with you about this pending litigation before now. It was discussed and mediated on December 13th without our knowledge, while we were all planning to attend the Planning Commission the following night to discuss it. I had a lot of things to say tonight, but I thought I would just say this. So I just want to tell you who I am. My husband and I are originally from the South, and we did not grow up with a lot of money. We worked really hard. We went to public high schools, public universities, and we paid for ourselves with scholarship and loans. And so we moved here from a big city area, having moved there from the South, where we lived in a suburb that was suffering with very bad crime. Theft and home invasions. Just a few months before we moved here, I had a door knocker come to my door, and before I could get a word out of my mouth, began giving me a pitch about why I needed to have his company come and do some repairs on my house. And so I had my young son, who was just a year old, crawling around my feet, and he went on very forcefully for a while and finally said, "So you need to tell me when I can come back and what your name and your phone number is, and I'm going to give you this $25 Visa gift card." And I said no, and he began yelling at me. He began threatening me and getting physically aggressive. He didn't actually attack me. I grabbed my son, we got in the house, and I called the police. And I'm telling you this story now because I want to explain to you why I moved to this community and why I sought out the Dunes West gated community to live in. And before I continue, I want to point out that my house is worth less than the median home price in Mount Pleasant. There are lots of homes in Mount Pleasant that have lots of different advantages and desirable aspects. What's desirable about my community and why we chose to live there is because someone can't just walk off the street and steal from us or come to my door and harass me when I answer it. There are a lot of people just like us in Dunes West. My neighbors are accountants. They own lawn repair businesses, a daycare director, teachers, and policemen. So I want you to understand who we are. We're hardworking people. We've chosen to live in a community where we can have private streets so we can have a higher quality of life.
Thank you, Ms. Kajuri. You did a great job. Thank you for coming to the council meeting today.
So if you would just look out for us, we would appreciate it to continue having that private community.
Appreciate that.
Todd Phillips?
It's okay. We'll look forward to seeing you next month. You'll be a regular. Welcome, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Todd Phillips. I live at 2113 Tallgrass Circles in the Dune West community. I ask that council look for any litigation on the project and stuff like that. And when it does come before the project, the council and stuff like that, a full knowledge of the rights of a private road connecting with public streets and stuff like that without proper documentation and stuff like that, it is illegal for a developer to add a street to a private road. So it would just open up litigation for council, for planning department, whoever approves that development. We also ask that there be a 50-foot boundary between, or buffer between us. We ask that the wetlands not be disturbed. We ask that there be a sufficient stormwater study so any development or anything like that doesn't impact private residents, doesn't add to our cost of maintaining our private roads or our private storm systems and stuff like that. We also ask that some sort of barrier be put between their property and ours as a 6-foot privacy fence so we do not have that integration or mitigation from people from one section to the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phillips.
Karen Peace?
How are you? Good evening.
I'm nervous too. I've never been.
Oh, don't be nervous. We're all friends here.
I hope so. Everybody's so polite. It's just nice. Okay. Hey there.
Hi.
I am Karen Peace. I live in Deans West, in Whispering Marsh, and I'm here because I'm opposed to building on parcel 21-2. I'm a mom and a preschool teacher, so I do not have all the accreditation, but I have concerns that we bought our home because we love the green space, and I'm so sad a little bit, like with Mount Pleasant and what's happened in Lake Park West with like this scraping. I'm not saying all development is bad, but just the loss of trees when I drive through it, my 5-year-old is like, Mommy, why are there no trees anymore? I'm like, sweetie, I don't know, but it is really, really sad. I also, as a mom and a teacher, our schools are just, over capacity. They just are. For Highway 41, if you're driving somewhere in rush hour, leave early because it is going to take a long, long time. And so those are my concerns, and I just don't really want it to be built on, but just want to be able to preserve what is beautiful about our community, what we love, what our kids love. It makes me sad that we're losing that. And that's it. I hope I did okay. It's my first one.
You did great. Thank you. Thank you. Great job. There's no one else to speak during public comment. Is there anyone else that came in late that would like to speak? I'll give you the opportunity. We'll give you 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Catherine Bernard. I live at 1300 Hermit Crab Way in Dunes West. I am requesting 2 things of the town council. The first is to deny Pulte's request to build on parcel 21 in Dunes West. And second, to conduct an immediate traffic assessment in the Dunes West Park West area. First, I will address parcel 21 and Pulte's request to build 26 townhomes on it. I'd like to refresh everyone's memory on the course of events leading up to this. September 21st, 2016, the Planning Commission denies Pulte's request to build single-family homes on parcel 21. This land right now is full of beautiful trees and beautiful nature. October 21st, 2015, Pulte sues the town of Mount Pleasant for denying their request. December 7th, 2016, Pulte presents plans to build 26 townhomes on Lot 21 at the Dunes West Homeowners Association meeting. This meeting was held in the Pinckney cafeteria and the place was packed. When the residents learned of this, they voiced their concerns directly to Pulte at this very meeting. December 13th, 2016, the Town Council approved Pulte's plans to develop townhouses on Lot 21. The residents were never given any public forum to voice our concerns. There were no yellow signs or anything to inform us that Lot 21 was going to be discussed that night. And this is important because you, our town council, may not have known then how the residents feel about building on this land when you approved Pulte's request. But now you do. We do not want or deserve any structures whatsoever there for many reasons, and I'd like to share a few of them with you. First, when all 2,400 of us in Dunes West bought our homes, there was a map that was prominently displayed in John Wheeland office that showed this land as natural open space. And also the original 1990 Dunes West map shows this land as natural open space. This shows that it was never intended to be built upon, and all 2,400 of us residents relied on this when we bought our homes. And if there's any dispute, perhaps it should be between Pulte and John Wheeland. Maybe that was misrepresented. I can't speak to that, but I can promise you that the residents want Lot 21 labeled as conservation. Secondly, there are walking paths throughout Dunes West, and we all thoroughly enjoy them. The park-like setting is why we live there. There's a path that goes along Lot 21, and to have townhomes visible from this path is contrary to the Dunes West appeal. And thirdly, Lot 21 is actually very shallow. Any structure whatsoever on this parcel is visible from Harper's Ferry Road. It doesn't matter that the townhouses would be outside the gate. The point is that you can see them from the walking path. In fact, Lot 21 is so shallow that in many spots you can even see Dunes West Boulevard when you're walking along the path that goes right by Harper's Ferry Road, right along Harper's Ferry Road.
Thank you, Ms. Barnard. I appreciate you coming to speak to council tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Coonan?
Kevin Cunane, 3032 River Vista Way in Dunes West. You know what I normally talk about, and I always say I never want to come back and say I told you so on the topic I normally talk about, which is we need a bigger fire department. Came up in the affordable housing, so I'm just going to give a plug. You talk about the pay. Give the firefighters and cops a raise. That's what you can control. You can't control the teachers. Pay them what they're worth, you know, and it's going to take several years to get there, but make it a priority to get these people that are protecting us properly paid. Next, Dunes West. Last month I was here. I was the only one that spoke. Council went into executive session. You know, I don't know what goes on back there. Came out, there's a unanimous vote in favor of developing parcel 21. But the process involved the developer standing up here and giving the impression, I don't know his exact words, I really don't have time to go back and read the transcript even, but my impression, and the impression of other people that were in the room, was that, yeah, we ran this past the POA, they're good with it. The very next day, the big rewrite of the Dunes West Park West zoning was put up here, and the president of the Dunes West POA came up and said, we oppose developing parcel 21. So I asked him, I said, hey, did they approach you? Well, we never had any resolution about it. There was the board didn't even exist because it was between elections. So that type of statement, we spoke to the POA, that's an attack on the integrity of the process, not your personal integrity. It's the integrity of the people that come up here. If somebody says they spoke to the POA, ask them, hey, was there a resolution? Did they make a formal resolution of support? Who did you speak to? Was it a single board member? Was it a single, hey, I pay dues to the Dunes West POA, maybe I can speak for them. You know, if that's what, so just take it a little bit, you know, take it a little more seriously. I've seen other very reputable architects and developers come up and bring a community member. And they say, hey, I've been talking to Mr. Jones for the last 6 months, and his input was these 5 things. I changed my plan to match what then you have verification, because Mr. Jones comes in and says, this guy's a good guy, we want this project to go through this way. This thing just goes through, and I said, hey, nobody knows about this. You know, I'm up here, I speak every month practically now. So I get it that you maybe doesn't always sink in, but in like 3 days, we have 200 members on a new Facebook page, Dunes West Preservation. That's pretty quick for a lot of people. And there's the 4 people that spoke tonight. It tells you, you know, it's different than just blow it through the system. People do care about this, and the integrity of process is at stake. When somebody says POA, just verify it.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. We have one more speaker. Would you come up and say your name and address for the record?
Good evening. Took a nap and got here late. My name is Lawrence Stokes. I live in 497 Coaxum Road. And I'm not sure if this is on the agenda or not. I see it's for planning. But this property on 841 Long Point Road that we're talking about as far as changing the zoning, I'm against that. And there's quite a lot of people in the neighborhood that's against that. It's quite a shame for the new owner to come into the neighborhood and do changes to a property with the intention not to live there as far as single family, but with the intention of putting up a business. And he has 6-8 foot fence, maybe a 10-foot fence, I'm not sure how high it is, but with lights. He removed all the trees in the backyard, and I don't know who gave him permission with that. I will hope that the council would check on that as well. There's a ditch in the backyard that may be filled because he brought in a lot of sand and gravel. And also, he's doing business as usual because there are trucks parked there, boats parked there as far as I can see. I'm hoping that some of these vehicles are diesel vehicles and that diesel is leaking into the groundwater. So there's a lot of things that are going on, and I'm not sure why that council or planning allowed this to happen, but also the traffic on Long Point Road in the beginning is just already outrageous. If you ever go through there between the hours of 6 a.m. in the morning and 9, you know what I'm talking about. In the afternoon is even worse. But to allow him or her, whoever's on this property, to move there and put a business is just outrageous.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. And for your information, it is on our agenda tonight under number 2 of new business for planning. So we'll be addressing it very shortly.
You're going to deny that, that's what you said.
I didn't say that. I have had words put in my mouth before. Thank y'all all for so passionately speaking. Can we ask for about 3-minute break before we move into new business? Y'all okay with that? Thank you. Make it as quick as possible so we can get through the agenda. Hey, Marcy.
You know what, it's, last year we just got back, and we just started our second batch, or next one. So keep it flowing.
Yeah, we were at a
I wouldn't have wanted to play any of this.
We have a quorum, almost. If we could get Will to sit down, we'd have a
Just
quorum.
watch the game?
Oh, yeah. Hey, hey, okay.
We're only missing Gary.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Mark and Jim is still out.
I know.
I'd ask that we reconvene so that we can move forward. Ms. Farrell, we have
from Resident District for a piece of property that's located at 529 Mills, request to rezone that to neighborhood commercial. This came in front of you for this to the Shem Creek Task Force for some sort of recommendation, and their work completed. The time that it was in front of you, an approval, they did in general recognize, especially as it related to be finalized by town council within, if there is to be any consideration of a or a no action, but in order to accomplish approval, it would need to proceed tonight. So the request, I think you are familiar with. As I stated a minute ago, it is just related to the underlying zoning district to change that from a residential zoning to neighborhood commercial. Well, the urban corridor is what will govern, and the urban corridor expands what can go into neighborhood commercial. So the uses that are in neighborhood commercial would be retail, restaurant, offices, and then the overlay coming in on top of this does allow for the residential uses as well on the property. So it expands to the opportunities. If the underlying is to remain as residential, then the only use would be residential. Permitted use would be residential.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Mr. Carrier?
We talked earlier about parking, and that's the big issue down there. And just the uses you just named would require significant parking. Can you tell me how much parking would be required on any of those uses you just named?
Well, the parking for like an office use, square feet, you're going to end up with 3 to 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet.
When a restaurant would be how many spaces per seats?
No, sir, it's also by square footage.
Square footage?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Madam Mayor, thank you. To Councilman Carrier's comment there earlier, I concur. In fact, I apologize to any of the neighbors who saw the black tinted window Suburban driving around there 4 or 5 times earlier today. All of those uses, 100% of the uses that you named are currently being utilized in that area. From Coleman Boulevard all the way down Simmons to, there are 10, in fact, not counting the corner bank lot that is empty with an ATM on it at Simmons and Coleman, not counting that lot, 10, and 8 of those are commercial use along that street. So for me, my question is, how long has this property owner, has it recently changed hands, or has it been a long time property owner? Do we know that?
I have no idea.
I believe he's represented that he's owned it for a long time, but it's a better question for him.
Gotcha. I just, from what I recall at our meeting before, this current use has been the existing use for a very long time. I believe that the owner of the subject property lives directly next door to that property. As I recall, I would like to have that confirmed. And the upstairs is rented, and the downstairs is the storage facility. I also recall that the property owner doesn't want and did not initiate this request, but is complying with this as a citation, I believe, or enforcement issue of commercial. So is in agreement to do this so he can continue to rent out the apartment and have a commercial use of the first floor garage area. And I just would encourage council members, if that indeed is the case, and we as a town are going to single out this property, let's make sure that we're looking at, as we said earlier, one of our citizens said earlier, let's take a slow and holistic approach to make sure that we're fully vetting this. And I would be inclined to grant this rezoning and welcome you to a 6% tax-paying citizen as opposed to a 4%, unfortunately for you, but good for the town. But it will allow you to continue to use your property as you have been using your property for a very long time. So, Council and Mayor, having said that, I would put that in the form of a motion to allow this rezoning to happen.
Second. I have a motion and a second for the rezoning. Ms. Farrell, I'd like to ask you a question as well. What is it's probably a V-zone property, I would assume, that close to the creek?
I would think so.
So, the potential height, redevelopment height on this property would be?
40 feet.
40 feet?
Yes, anything in a flood zone is allowed 40.
Starting at 12 foot above ground?
I don't know. It depends
Depending
on-
if it's a V?
Well, it depends on the elevation of the property. I don't have that information. If the underlying district was commercial.
Thank you. That's all I have. I have a motion and a second for approval. Mr. Carey?
Just to go back to the parking issue for a minute, and let's go back, way back to Earl's Court and the 500-foot rule on commercial parking. Would that apply here? Where
That
you could
applies.
count parking as far away as 500 feet?
That applies anywhere in our code, that if you are able to secure a covenant agreement on a different property, with that particular property owner, you may park off-site, but there's a covenant agreement required, and then the distance requirement with proximity is also one of the conditions. So that could happen, but what would happen is, I don't have my pointer, but if, I'm just picking a random property, but if they were able to acquire that property for parking, it would encumber that particular piece of property from any further development, because the parking for that use would be met on the other property.
Even if it was being used as parking now? Because there's a lot right there,
That's the-
2 doors down.
Well, this
I
is,
mean, if it was being used by another occupant as parking, can you double up on parking? No.
Thank you. Mr. Haney?
Thank you. Ms. Farrell, the upstairs of this is, to our knowledge, being used for residential, which is allowed.
that's what was
The
expressed.
downstairs is non-conforming right now.
That's right, that's the way it was represented.
Okay. My second question would be, it's a little bit of a broader question because, Councilman Smith, I've done the same. I've walked that property. I met with the property owner next door who served on the Slim Creek Task Force, who did not weigh in on our vote, but gave me some facts and some observations so I could make an informed decision. What does our zoning say if you, and I'm not just talking about how it might be being used now, but in the future, if you have a transaction that takes place online, okay, reserving something online, whether it's a boat rental on Shem Creek or a kayak or something like that, and you merely come by and pick it up there, but the transaction doesn't occur on premises, what does zoning say about that?
Zoning doesn't really address that particular scenario.
Okay, so part of the reason that might be a non-conforming use is maybe our zoning needs to look at more of the e-economy that we have, or the potential for that, because in other words, if we rezone this, you could use that for almost any commercial use and do your transaction online and you could have bicycles, you could have paddle boards or anything. Because my big thing, and I've seen videos of that area, is that boat landing in this property is very unique in where it sits at a very dangerous area for boat traffic on holidays and weekends right there. And for that reason, I think we would have to be very, very careful to open it up to almost any commercial use. I think the dangers there outweigh other considerations, given that it is a house and given that it is being used for residential, which is allowed. That's why I intend to not support this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. Mr. Bustos?
Yeah, I'm not inclined to vote for this either for these reasons. We just heard from the Shem Creek Task Force, and we're getting ready to, I think, hire a consultant to give us some ideas about this. And what is good and what is not good, what would be appropriate in there. And, you know, when you go, that's a boat landing. And when you go around that corner with the boat, and there are all manner of boats, all size boats, and to have a business there where people are pulling out, I guess, paddle boards and kayaks there, it really impedes the use of the boat landing. And you're not going to get away from that because that's one of the few boat landings we have. So on the one hand, I think we're getting ready to spend money for people to answer some of these questions. And the second thing is there's an established boat landing there that I don't think we need to hinder. So, you know, I can't support this.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos, and that brings up a couple of questions, Ms. Farrell. So the way you've outlined this, the way the vote would go tonight, so that there's really no opportunity to defer this until we get further into the Shem Creek Task Force. That's my challenge. I certainly support a business owner, a property owner using their property as they see fit. My challenge is with boat landing, and I've talked to the owners about it. I've certainly talked to people who are potentially going to use the bottom. It isn't their use that's the challenge. If they're going to truly use it for storage and that requires no parking, that's one thing. But, you know, I have some experience with other businesses in that area. My niece leases 3 properties for pedestrian parking. So, you know, they're just challenges for me. But would there be a way for us to recognize the hard work of the task force and give them some more time to see if we could come up with a solution for this?
Well, you really only have 3 options with respect to this. Your first, of course, is approval, which would require the first reading and a final reading, presumably this evening, and then at your February meeting, which is the 6th month. So that would be finalized. Denial. What occurs with denial, you all are aware, if something is denied, that means that the applicant cannot come back for a year with the same request on the same property. That's the result of that. Now, the council does have the ability to grant a waiver. That's your discretion. If after 6 months, the Shem Creek Task Force were further along, and the applicant wanted to come in following a denial and ask for a waiver to reapply, you could certainly consider such. It would have to go through the Planning Commission process again. And the final option that I don't think has ever necessarily been utilized, but there is a no action. What would happen with no action is the request becomes null and void. The waiting period does not apply when the request is null and void. Those are the 3 options in front of you.
Thank you. And just for some further clarification, I don't know if this is appropriate for you, Mr. Pagliarini, or for you, Ms. Farrell. There's no council action that could limit. I mean, we understand. I think we all fully understand what the property owner is trying to do. But there's no encumbrances that we can make upon the zoning request that will assure us that it's going to continue to be boat storage underneath and a residential unit above, if we go one way or the other. Is that correct?
Not through your zoning. That would have to be something that the property owner would have to
come forward if that would truly be the intent of the property owner, which would assure us just until we get the boat landing issue somewhat more resolved through some further work on the task force, and that would just be my question. So, yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Eric or David, in talking about activity and transaction work at a boat landing, is it my understanding that businesses in the right-of-way can bring rentals into that area? Could you refresh me on the legality of that has been going on? in the past and what the laws are regarding stand-up paddleboard rentals that are brought on site and parked in the right-of-way and transacting business at a public boat launch as it relates to stand-up paddleboards and kayaks.
Mr. Smith, this is an issue we've been grappling with for years. I can't sit here tonight and remember all the specifics of it, but I do know that what was happening, and you know that the boat landing is operated by Charleston County PRC. Well, we do have a responsibility as a town is to ensure peace of the area as much as possible to residents, including Mr. Mauer and his wife, and also safe passage for commerce and things like that. So what we were able to do is take an area closest to the water and treat it as a designated spot to get those performing business out of the way to make it a safe area and to try to control it as far away from a homeowner as possible. We also stepped up police enforcement in the area with regular patrol and bike patrol, and to make sure people are, you know, it can be a tough area at times. And so, but as far as anything else, we've tried to improve the area. We've worked with Mr. Mauer. I think he would agree that we've been successful to some degree with as much authority as we have. After that, it's a state road, as you know. I think we're doing all we can as a town. I think we've proven we've done all we can as a town, given that it's a state road and the boat landing is operated by another governmental entity.
I guess my point in raising that question is the market is demanding and getting rentals of floatable items to enjoy this pristine area, and will continue to demand and probably continue to get in some form or fashion. So we've addressed, as you eloquently articulated, the side of the business. We have storage, as my understanding, and I would like to hear a clarification that this is actually correct from the property owner. We have storage of floatable devices to fill the demand of the marketplace that is primarily being transacted in another area next to Growl's Mount Pleasant Seafood, I believe, is where that business is also headquartered out of, or another area over there. So if this vote does go down, is denied, they're going to have to stop storing boats there. So the very problem that we're stating that we want to fix, we are actually exacerbating, because the amount of inventory that is available currently and has been for a very long time in that area, the unintended consequences here are going to be astounding, in my own humble opinion.
Mr. Smith, would you like to ask a question of the property owner? I see that he's present.
That'd be great.
Mr. Mao? Well, we have you signed up to speak as well, so if it's okay, if we don't have any further council questions at this time, I'll allow the speakers to come forward. We do have a motion and a second on the table, so come on forward and we'll give you your 2 minutes now. Perhaps you can clarify some of that for us.
My name is Mel Mauer. I live at 529 Mill Street. I've been there for 30 years. I've been there before the boat landing was built. I've seen many changes. Today I walked around the neighborhood from Simmons to Mill to Coleman, and I noticed 27 residents who lived there 30 years ago. When I moved there are 5 there now. The other 22 former residents are either businesses or they're parking lots for businesses. In addition, on Mill Street, Bailey's Executive Office Building, the second one, has been built. The restaurant beside the Shem Creek Bar and Grill has been built. Coastal Exhibition, their building, their kayak and paddleboard storage has been erected. Shem Creek Marina has put up 2 dry stacks, 5 boats high, each of those stacks having 80 boats in them. They've erected another dry stack with 25 boats. That's an additional 185 boats that have been put into the marina, which means they had to get a bigger forklift, the big bull that makes so much noise, and it makes it from 8 o'clock in the morning till perhaps 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I don't understand how there's any logic to not allowing us to have a commercial zoning in amongst all this other business. The parking, Mr. Carrier, I have plaques. Can I give these to you all?
Absolutely.
That plat shows the property on 529 Mill Street. The yellow section is all potential parking. There's so much potential parking. There's, I would say, 12 to 14 potential parking spots available on this property. I own the property next door with more parking spots available. The people that are in there now have been there for almost a year and a half. I've never seen anyone park on the streets. Businesses in the neighborhood, they park on the street, they park their trucks, they park their cars, they park their boats on public streets, keeping them there for days, weeks at a time. There's businesses in the neighborhood that use the sidewalks. Mr. Ely uses the sidewalk as part of his parking lot. He blocks the sidewalk with his parking. If I could do that, I could have even more parking at 529 Mill Street. And as Mr. Smith stated, I didn't want this to be commercial property. I'm part of the Affordable Task Force that was mentioned tonight that's over 65 years old, who is concerned about their income. I'm concerned about keeping my house. This is a large part of my retirement. I've been renting those garages out for 30 years. I've never had any complaints, none. I wouldn't allow it. I don't want any congestion in that area. I live there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not there 8 hours a day, like Mr. Ely, who is making these complaints. It's absurd. The problem is on Mill Street. It's not on Simmons Street. Thanks for your time.
I have 5 other people signed up to speak.
Wendy Mauer?
Hi, thank you.
I wanted to correct my husband's statement that he lives at 529 Mill Street, because I promise you, he lives with me at 525 Mill Street. But anyway, I'm Wendy Mauer. And at the previous town council meeting at which our case was being considered, I brought up 2 points to town council, and they were, number one, that we, my husband and I, do not have plans to create a large business on the corner where we live, and that the second point was that how busy the boat landing becomes is totally not impacted by allowing us to rent the garage at 529 Mill Street to Nature's Adventures Outfitters. So I had talked about that already, so I'm not going to go into that, but tonight, I just want to make sure that you really do realize that we actually live right there beside 529 Mill Street. So any activities that happen at this boat landing, they easily impact our, gives us livability issues. And so even sometimes our ability to access our own driveways. But more than anyone else probably in this room, and maybe possibly even in Mount Pleasant, we don't want to see the Shem Creek boat landing become overused or overcrowded. So we're just asking you, please, to grant the rezoning request, or whatever means you can to allow us to live as simple a life as we can. That's really all we want, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Maurer.
Kathy Livingston?
Mayor Page and council and everyone here in this wonderful town of Mount Pleasant. My name is Kathy Livingston. I live in Allendale. I own a condo on Lansing Drive at 926 Lansing Drive in Mount Pleasant. I've owned it for 21 years, well, 22. I love this community and I work here. My son lives here, he goes to college. I am the occupant in those garages that you're talking about. I feel like I'm impeding Mr. Maurer's ability to rent these garages, you know, and change the zoning, because I'm a paddleboard outfitter and I'm a kayak outfitter. We're not running out of the boat landing. We are occupying it right now because we lost all of our storage when the town built the boardwalks. If you look at Mount Pleasant Seafood, you can't even see it anymore. We lost all of our storage. The docks were rebuilt below, they're too short to hold the kayaks. Mr. Fitch said no, because the kayaks, they're too encumbered to go from dock to dock to dock. So we lost over 60% of our storage. My manager's here tonight and she can testify to that. So that's why we opted for these garages. Yes, it is very convenient to the water. And if anything, being there has stopped the other outfitters from coming in there and parking, you know, in Mr. Maurer's parking places and unloading and doing everything that they're doing. We're very good stewards. We have pictures tonight to show you. We're just repairing a few kayaks in there. When I say a few of them need to be repaired. The rest are being stored. But we are the captains of the Shem Creek clean sweep, beach sweep, every annual sweep. We bring in hundreds of school children to come and clean the creek. We work with the Shem Creek Task Force. Elizabeth is also our manager. She's on that task force and she cares about the creek. She lives here too. But you know, we are not going to be running kayaks and canoes out of there. I can, off of my 2 minutes, answer those questions for you. I am also the chair of the Paddle Sports Industry Association of the state of South Carolina. I've been chair for many, many years. I can answer those legal questions for you and how these transactions can take place. Before I have Mount Pleasant Seafood, I've been there 8 years. We have our own boat ramp. We have our own places there that we launch people. So our mission is not to do that. We appreciate the opportunity to be in the town of Mount Pleasant. We've worked with you. We've supported the boardwalk. We love it. We love the town, and we're doing everything we can to just be good stewards.
Thank you, Ms. Livingston. We appreciate your comments.
Would you like me to answer your questions about the permitting and how transactions take place?
Mr. Smith, are you clear on the fact that...
Please, answer the question.
Okay. All right. The way that it works in the paddling world, and also for captains who take out people fishing, you cannot conduct, and with County PRC, I've met with Tom O'Rourke many, many times over these issues. No county landing can have a commercial transaction conducted on site. So before I had Mount Pleasant Seafood's location, I would bring a truck and a trailer, just like all the other outfitters. You have Sea Kayak Carolina right now. In fact, Coastal Expeditions actually uses that boat landing to put in their own boat where they take people out. So you can take transactions off-site and, yes, launch people off the boat landing. However, Mr. Maurer and I have both observed there are lots of people with those squares on their phones, those boat captains that are doing it 24/7 out there. I never complain. I want them to have a living. I want them to make a living. They're not stalling people. If anything, if I decided to run out of there or lost my lease at Mount Pleasant Seafood and went, I would not be blocking traffic. You know, a paddleboard could be carried down the ramp area and be put in. But yes, you can conduct those permitted, you can conduct your transactions off-site and put in there. If you stop paddleboarders and kayak outfitter, small commercial entities like Sea Kayak Carolina, Charleston Paddler, all those others, Odyssey puts in right there. In fact, they bring their golf cart around. If you stop them, then you have to stop the commercial fishermen from doing that as well. The county, so if I don't have that storage and if I lose Mount Pleasant Seafood, I've been running out of Shem Creek since 1999. I would bring a trailer we call Bertha, who holds 30 kayaks and paddleboards, and park her in there and run the transactions off-site and then put them in. So yes, any commercial entity can do that, but you also have Seatow, who is a commercial entity who puts their boats in. I'm sure they take their payments off-site. So the mobile world has come into our lives, and the quick transactions, are being conducted there, but it's not through my company.
Thank you.
We have another office, so.
Elizabeth Anderson.
Thank you.
I have a selection of photos of the neighborhood, and the last ones are the actual property that we occupy.
Welcome, Elizabeth. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Elizabeth Anderegg. I live at 3 Florence Street on Sullivan's Island. I'm the manager of Nature Adventures Outfitters, and I do own property in the town of Mount Pleasant. I have a townhouse in Hunter's Trace. Also, affordable housing. I just wanted to say that we really feel like it's in the best interest and the most logical use of the property to zone it commercial. To zone it residential makes no sense. There's no logic to it. My biggest concern for the Mowers is their future. What young family, mom, dad, a couple of kids, would buy a property at that corner to raise their family? There's no residential value in that property, not beyond the Mowers probably. You wouldn't choose to put your family there to watch that boat ramp all night? I know you wouldn't. Would you let your daughter or your son live there, raising your grandchildren? I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. What logic is behind denying it? You don't want a hotel there? I don't think the Mowers are going for a hotel. We are good stewards of the creek. We use it for storage. There is not a neighbor left. That road, Mill Street, isn't even a street anymore. If you notice, there's a picture from the Dry Stack Marina. They block Mill Street with a lovely barrier. You can't drive Mill Street. It's a boat ramp. So I'm not sure what the justification for this to remain residential is. It makes no sense. There's no logic. And to me, it's just taking his property and devaluing it, giving him nothing. This is his retirement. He's lived there for 30 years. He's watched it. And what you're suggesting to not give him makes no sense. And I would just ask the town to think seriously about devaluing someone's property to the point that it has no value. And what does that do?
Thank you, Ms. Anderegg.
Randall Blythe.
Mayor Page, honored councilman, my name is Randall Blythe. I live at 1052 Old Georgetown Road, and I knew this property when Mill Street and Simmons Street connected, and there wasn't a marina there. That was truly Shem Creek. Then they built the Dry Stack Marina, but that was the end of peace and serenity and good views right then and there. But I say, this is a tempest in a teapot. The best action you can take is take no action. Is give them a variance. That way you don't have to worry about future hotels being built there. There was never a problem here. I rented this garage for a number of years before they did. And I just stored my stuff, and I had a boat there. I've been rowing out there for over 30 years. I know what's going on there. The fact that Nature's Adventures is there has been the most calming influence on that corner. Before that, it was the Wild West. When I drove up there to access my stuff, I had to go through people who thought this was part of the boat ramp. I don't know why this happened in the first place. Somebody was jealous or something. Because there's never been a problem from any of the people renting there. It's been the people who have been squatting there, the people who have been trespassing there and doing business on Mel's property without his consent. So I don't know why this ever happened. We're wasting a lot of time here. This has been a wonderful place, and there's never been a problem. There's no parking problem caused by Nature's Adventures, and there's never been a parking problem caused by any of the people in residences there. It's been the people who take advantage that nobody has been there to say you can't park here. I said, Mel has tried to protect that property for a long time. At one time, they were going to take this whole place and make it into a Rimley's Point. Fortunately, we stood up right here and stopped that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments.
Bonnie St-Pierre.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
And I'm the fourth piece of the puzzle. I am the tenant who lives above 529 Mill Street. I'm also a property owner in Mount Pleasant of 2 properties at Basildon Road, otherwise known as the Battery Park West. I moved to Mel's neighborhood and live on top of Mel's residence garages for 10 years. I have never heard a sound from any of his tenants downstairs, including Kathy. The only issue that I have ever had living in Mel's neighborhood, and Mel's property, is the people who brazenly block my driveway with mobile units and rent paddleboards with cubes in my driveway. That's the only thing, and that's actually Mel's driveway. And block my car and say, it'll just be a minute. So I think I think that nothing should be done about the way Mel's been using his property, but something should be done, including try to do fines, tickets, whatever you need to do. There's at least 9 people that come, including just people who have a few paddleboards to rent and bring these tractor trucks or whatever, pickup trucks, and rent paddleboards in front of my house, Mel's property, from the beginning of February until the end of September with neither a business license, a permit, or insurance. And that is a public boat landing. And I don't know if there's any liability to the city or the town themselves, but if there's people operating with no insurance and no permits, no licenses, no business license, just think of how much money you're losing with that. What if somebody could sue the town because they are running a business off the boat landing? Kathy's just storing boats. These people are just coming from everywhere and renting paddleboards over there with a cube. Everywhere and blocking that road. It's not Mel. It's those people who use the paddleboards on the carts. The people that come set them up in Mel's yard. Mel has never had any business running paddleboards out there. People bring them by carloads, truckloads, and lay them on the street right in front of his house every day. And nobody does anything about it. It's not Kathy. I've been there for 10 years and nobody has ever made a sound on any of those garages. Nobody. It's the people who just bring things there and rent them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Mr. Owens?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a waterman. I paddleboarder, kayaker, surfer, sailor. I get it. I understand that you have a business in this location. Ms. Farrell, can you answer something for me, please? Is there any fines being used for non-conformance at this point in time at this location?
I think that this was actually, I don't think that we actually wrote a ticket that I recall. It's been so many months ago. I think we put them on notice, just by way of through our code enforcement officer.
Okay, and the reason I bring that up is because the council is currently divided on this issue, obviously. And given the circumstances, we just supported the Shem Creek Task Force and promoting a consultant to look into this issue. I believe that this parcel of property is in fact in the shaded area that was represented by the task force. And I would like to see that this parcel is incorporated by everyone in the town of Mount Pleasant, both this council, the task force, and this consultant. And I would just ask that this motion that's currently on the table be removed for no action, so that we can get the answers we're looking for from the consultant before we make any decision. I think we have to have all the information available to us before we make a prudent decision. And I would just ask this council to make that consideration of those who put this motion on the floor to have further consideration about removing. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Owens, and I mirror your sentiments. My challenge is not this business owner and this property owner. I have no challenge with them individually. It is that we are trying to create a master plan, and we're tasked now to do that, and we're moving forward tonight to do that. So I understand the difficulty of the circumstances. I don't want to, I would hate to push it to an up or down when we're so close to having some sort of master plan, and we all realize that this is not an ideal place to live. I grew up on Chuck Dolly Boulevard, and I can tell you it's changed a lot since we moved there in the 1950s, and early 60s. So, we understand it's an area in transition, but it would be up to the one who has the motion and the second on the floor to make an amendment. Other than that, we do have a motion and a second for approval of the rezoning at this time. Mr. Smith?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Councilman. I hear you loud and clear, and again, I would state comments that I made very early in my remarks, and that is that this request was not the request and desire of the property owner. We're here because of the town, not because of the property owner. And I would be comfortable removing my motion only with assurance that a stay is something that could be put in place, or some assurance that what's been going on for 30 years can continue to go on, which I don't believe we have the right to do. Is there any path that would allow a stay or a grandfathering or whatever the word is? And I feel like I already know the answer before I ask the question, and it's no. Could you just confirm that, Mr. Pagarini?
Right, it can't be a change in or a stay enforcement of existing.
Thank you for asking, but the answer is no, right?
But Mr. Pagarini, and I think we asked Ms. Farrell earlier, is there an opportunity for us to pause as we are working through the task force, the finalization of moving forward with a consultant?
I think Ms. Farrell laid it out with the options, but I think all I would say is enforcement is certainly different than the zoning issue. Keep those separate, but yes, if there's no action taken, what that does is eliminate that requirement to come back and request a waiver.
Thank you very much. Mr. Santos, do you have comments, questions?
No, I think I was going to ask the same thing, pretty much say the same thing you did about, if we didn't take any action, how would that affect us? I know that you said, at least in here, that we had within up to 6 months, and I think February will be the end of that 6 months, correct? So if we don't take any action so that we allow the consultants to come in, as Mr. Owens was saying, what happens at that 6 months? Can we extend it somehow so that we can allow we can extend it?
It's written in the zoning code.
So what happens at 6 months if we take no action?
The pending request becomes null and void.
Okay, so they can, in other words, they can still operate the way they're operating now? No?
Well, I think that was a question Mr. Smith was trying
No.
to ask, and as Mr. Pagliarini said, that it becomes a different issue, it becomes an enforcement issue, which is what initiated this request by the property owner to begin with, was an enforcement.
So the only thing I'm struggling with is that the task force recommended that it remain a working creek. You know, it used to be a working creek with a drinking problem, now it's a drinking creek with a working problem. And so, I mean, I like the idea of having it become more of a working creek. I'd like to hear what a consultant would have to say. So I'm kind of stuck here because, you know, maybe they will recommend that be commercial. And I'd hate to take a stand on it and deny it, only to find out that the consultant does recommend it. So can we have first reading on it and then maybe do something, or we have to have second reading as well?
There may be one solution. I'll have to ask Mr. Pagliarini. If it was the intent of the majority of council, we could deny the request and give them a waiver where they wouldn't have to come back, wouldn't have to wait a year to reply.
Oh, there you go.
Would that be, Mr. Pagliarini, do you understand where I'm trying to go with that? So if the motion was denied, Ms. Farrell, our requirements are to wait 1 year for you to come back and make the application. And if we waived the 1 year, once we get through the task force in the next couple of months, when we hear the recommendations that we're so eagerly seeking, then y'all can come back before 1 year. Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Madam Mayor, that is eloquently stated and still puts us in the same conundrum we're currently in. A denial with a wink-wink head nod that will grant you a 1 year waiver still creates a non-conforming use that has been identified. So how does that allow the continuance of the current, how is that any different than doing nothing? A denial and doing nothing are the same results. Correct, David?
Well, other than the year waiting period, that would have to be waived by council, yes, sir.
But the commercial use downstairs doesn't change unless we grant a zoning change.
Enforcement would not be affected by no action or a denial, yes, sir.
Mr. Haney, yes, certainly.
Did you mean to imply that we would create a non-conforming use? I thought they had already created that. We're not changing, the zoning has been there, right? The residential R1 has been there. We are not changing zoning and creating a non-conforming use. Someone with a non-conforming use is asking us to change zoning, unless I'm understanding this wrong. Is that right? Isn't that right?
The request is from the landowner.
Because they currently have a non-conforming use. It's not a case where we're going to change the zoning and create that. My other question would be of legal. If we approve this tonight, once we have done that, these uses could be restaurant, office, hotel. It could be a hotel, a 40-foot hotel. It goes with the property, right? And that's permanent.
That's right, sir. We can't condition the zone.
Right.
Whatever the allowed uses are in that category we can allow.
And as Mr. Busto said, we're about to spend money and hire a consultant and carry forward the work that the citizens group did, and we could permanently change that or undo that by granting this neighborhood commercial on a parcel right as sort of the linchpin of this thing. I don't understand why we would do that and just thumb our nose at the Shem Creek Task Force. To me, you know, one, they can come back for a zoning if we vote it down, but once we say yes, we can't go undo that.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Haney, and we understand that this is a moving target and that there will be commercial development here, and you know they'll be in the middle of it at some point through their retirement program, I'm sure. But you know he could also continue he could continue to operate if we granted him commercial zoning and he put a deed restriction and I'd just like a little bit of what that would mean to a property owner to deed restrict to use it as a storage facility.
That would be up to him. It wouldn't be part of the ordinance.
Correct.
At all.
And how do those flow with the property, and what would his options be later when we're finished with the task force as if he enforces deed restriction?
That depends on the deed restriction, how it's written, whether it's enforceable, and that is a matter outside our scope and ability to control it. We have to see it and opine on it.
Thank you. Anybody, Mr. Bustos?
You know, a lot of people don't like to believe it, but doing nothing is an option. Usually an option in almost everything. And this thing has been this way for 30 years. And, you know, an enforcement action, I guess, is what brought it here tonight, or 6 months ago. It ain't gonna change. You know, I think just doing nothing, and let's get what the consultant may say, and let's make a decision then. But I think going either way is going, if we deny it, that might not long-term be the right thing to do. If we approve it, it may not be in the long-term the right thing to do. Don't know. We do know we have a busy boat landing. We do know we have kayaks that come from any number of places there. We do know that from the owner, he has said he's been, I guess, renting space down there, running a little commercial operation for 30 years. What's another 6 months? Yeah, I mean, we can beat this to death, but I think if we just say, okay, let's do nothing, as outlined by Ms. Farrell, and then we're getting ready to spend good taxpayer money on this consultant. I just don't see why we need to, this is one that you want it bad, you get it bad.
Thank you. That being said, I do have a motion and a second for approval on the table.
Are you willing to withdraw your motion? You said a little while ago that you would consider it.
Thank you. Based on all of us saying the same thing now for about 20 minutes and hearing no new news, I am not comfortable withdrawing my motion as an elected official when a problem's been identified and giving a head nod or a wink that would allow you to continue to use non-conforming use based on the rationale that there's other action the town's taking that would potentially affect the entire area of your neighborhood. So, no, because I can't imagine looking at that property, and I'll put the disclaimer out there, I'm no land planner, I plant in land, but I absolutely can't imagine any consultant coming back and saying that area on that screen highlighted should continue to be residentially zoned.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments from council?
I mean, I'm just going to, you know, I like the idea of being able to vote no and let them come back, wait it for a year, gives us a chance to have the consultants come in and talk to us. And so that's why I'm going to be voting that way, because I want them to have an opportunity to come back after the consultants give us, because as I said, you can read it, the consultants or what they're recommending is that commercial be on that creek. And so, but we're going to hire a consultant. I would rather listen to a professional and the consultant to understand and listen to hear what they have to say first before I vote on this. So I agree with what you were talking about as far as denying it and then waiving the year requirement and allowing them to come back.
Thank you, Gary. Mr. Santos, I apologize. Mr. Pagrini, can you tell me what action would be required for us tonight if it's a no vote? Would we, at the same time, relieve them of the one-year waiver?
I believe that has to be brought by the applicant. I don't think that can
just trying to get process. Thank you. So the process would be if they receive a denial tonight, then Mr. Mauer and his wife, as owners of the property, would bring it to your staff for a request to be relieved from the one-year waiver for reconsideration. And we take it back through the whole process.
Well, just to you.
Oh, just straight to council.
I mean, just to council.
Yeah.
But the zoning, if there was if that was approved and there was a follow-up zoning request, it would have to go back through the process.
Thank you very much. We've had a lot of conversation, and I see some very puzzled faces out there. Are there, I'm just going to call for the vote. So would you roll call, please, just so it'll be a little easier for us to keep track?
Mr. Brimmer is absent. Mr. Bustos?
No.
Mr. Bustos votes no. Mr. Carrier?
No.
Mr. Carrier votes no. Mr. Garch?
Aye.
Mr. Garch votes yes. Mr. Haney?
No.
Mr. Haney votes no. Mr. Owens?
No.
Mr. Owens votes no. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Smith votes yes. Mayor Page?
No.
Mayor Page votes no.
So the motion has been denied. You're not receiving approval tonight. It will be up to you to come back to staff with consideration of all the questions that we brought forward tonight. So thank you very much. Moving on to item number 2 is a first reading of an ordinance to rezone another piece of property from residential to area-wide business. This one's on Long Point Road, Ms. Carroll?
Yes, this is actually 2 tracts of land. They total 1.1 acres. They are located on the corner of Long Point Road and Coxum Road, highlighted in the map in front of you. The land use recommendation for the future land use map is community conservation. Surrounding properties, just as a matter of information, are zoned all residential, R1, community conservation, and then across the road, Steen Farm, properties zoned as R4.
Madam Mayor, I motion to deny this request.
I have a motion and a second for denial, and we have several people signed up to speak. Before I open it up to the floor, I would like to know if there are any questions from the council. Thank you. If you'll, I have 4 people signed up to speak, so we'll open up the mic.
Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Ms. Stokes Marshall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, the council members, for providing the opportunity for me to address this item. I attended both the Planning Commissioners meeting as well as the Planning Committee meeting last month and this month. And as you can see, there are a significant number of residents from the Snowden community who opposes this request. It is totally out of character. It is, in fact, a business that has been created in a residential community. When the property was purchased by the current owner, I spoke with him myself, and he indicated that it was he and his brother who would be living there as a resident. It's quite obvious that it is not for residential purposes. It is a full-scale business. It's impacting our community in a negative way across the board. The amount of property, he cleared off all of the trees and natural buffers in the area. He came in with a cement truck and filled in wetland that is impacting and affecting residents, lifelong residents, that's impacting their sewer system and creating problems and economic impacts on them. I really feel that this, for the recommendation from both the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee, was to deny this. And obviously I'm hoping that Council will support that. However, I know that there have also been citations issued. I would like to know, like the rest of our community residents want to know, how do we make our community whole again by this guy, the gentleman, violating the current zoning laws that's there?
Thank you, Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Thank you.
Who else is signed up to speak?
Donna Newton.
Like Mr. Stokes, I'm here again. We were here before with the Planning and Zoning Committee and also with the Planning Council, and they both of them agreed that this property should not be rezoned. And we're here asking again for the full council to not approve the rezoning of this property. The people that came in with the intention, they told us that they won't be building, we don't be building a home. Then we know within months, these big fences come up, big trucks come through. Long Point Road is already a heavily trafficked area right now. And now with trucks coming through, it will also cause the town of Mount Pleasant a lot of expense, being that Long Point Road is considered historical. And with the extra weight, all the trucks coming in, it's going to create expense for road repair down the road. So we're asking, we also presented to the Planning Council a petition from the majority of members of the residents in Snowden, asking for them not to allow this to be rezoned. So the residents opposed it, and we're here asking that the town also agree with the other the recommendation of the Planning Council and the Planning Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Elliot Barrow.
Elliot Barrett, Chuck Darley Boulevard. This zoning change should be denied in its entirety. First of all, Snowden is a residential neighborhood. It should not be invaded by a business. It's been there for over 150 years, and it's under enormous pressure by those who wish to destroy it for their own profit. Secondly, the comprehensive plan clearly provides that African American neighborhoods such as Snowden are entitled to special protection to preserve the unique nature and character of these neighborhoods. Allowing a business like this is just a thin edge of the wedge to divide and dismantle Snowden. Thirdly, the applicant, as pointed out by Ms. Thomasina, smuggled a business activity into this residential neighborhood without permission. They should not benefit from their wrongful behavior. They came in, chopped down the trees, put up this giant fence, and now have commercial vehicles and the like parked back there. It's completely out of character. Fourthly, the applicant already has an office building in a commercial zone here in Mount Pleasant over on Benning Road. On that property, as revealed by the photographs which I tendered to the commission and also to the committee, it's clearly illustrated that that property over there is strewn with a bus, numerous trucks, trailers, and boats. That's precisely what they're trying to do here in this residential neighborhood. They've already put up this fence. The commercial property surrounding their location on Benning includes Jiffy Lube, Children's Discovery Center, dental office, gas station, convenience store, and more. That's where their office should remain. Fifth, the massive traffic that would be caused by this with trucks, commercial vehicles, and such blasting through Snowden. Snowden is not a thoroughfare. It's a residential neighborhood. They'll have to go up Coaxum to Snowden Road, over to Maggie, over to Alston, over to Egypt to get out. So for all of these reasons, this zoning change should be denied. All the commercial activities ought to be removed from this property. The property should be completely restored, the fence coming down, all the field taken out, all the trees replanted. And by the way, the applicant did not even bother to show up at either the commission meeting or at the committee meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Barrow.
Pat Sullivan.
I want to point out that at the Planning Commission, Pat Sullivan, 1002 Plantation Card, that whole half of council chambers was filled with Snowden residents. And it was just about filled at the Planning Committee meeting. And I don't blame some of the people for not being all being back here again. I had these. These photographs are not all that great, but the first one, at least you can see popping up from the fence the large equipment that this person is storing there. That is so unfair to the residents who have previously said that because of filling in his property with gravel, dust is now coming over into their homes. Septic tanks are overflowing, because the wetlands are not there anymore. And Google Earth will show you that this whole piece of property was totally wooded before this person took ownership. And I hope that the town can advise the residents on every possible legal thing that they can do to get this guy, remove his business from this property and bring it back to as much residential normalcy as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ellen. That's all we have signed up to it. We do have a motion and a second on the floor to deny. I do have one question for you, Ms. Farrell, that might clarify. I know this has been discussed twice, the Planning Committee and Planning Commission. If this motion is approved to deny the future commercial use of this property, is there anything that we can do fine-wise or any sort of enforcement for things that have already taken place on the property?
Well, our steps will be this. First of all, we will be able to enforce, if the zoning request is denied, we will move forward more proactively with enforcement of the use. So that will become the process through ticketing in the court system. What we are doing right now, coordination with our code enforcement officer and our town engineer, and with some input from Public Services, we are investigating some of the concerns and complaints there have been regarding drainage in the area, and so we may be able to have some enforcement action with respect to that. The fence is not something that we're going to be able to address. We don't regulate fences. We don't have any requirement to make the property owner remove the fence. So that's something that we're not going to be able to address. The trees and the clearing of the property with our arborist on staff, he's not going to be able to figure out a lot because of the manner in which the property was cleared, to know exactly what sort of enforcement action there can be following that. So I think that at this point in time, assuming denial of this, we will move forward with the use, which is what we will be able to address most immediately, and then we'll continue our review with respect to the drainage.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Yes, Mr. Bustos?
The part of this that concerns me is, if I'm hearing you right, Christiane, we can't have him restore that property back to the way it was. I mean, I'm like you, I don't know what was there, but I would assume many of the trees that were taken down should not have been. And when Public Service looks at that, if there's concrete that has been poured in a ditch and several other things, I think we should have the ability to restore or require restoration, I think.
And there is some, Joe, Mr. Bustos, what am I hearing? There is some restoration depending on the mitigation for the damage to the flood and the wetlands. You know, we talk often about, you can't run water on someone else's property, you don't get a CO.
That's right.
So that will be mitigated. Obviously, it's very hard for an arborist to go back and look at a Google Earth picture and determine a tree or not tree. But I'm sure we will, to the full extent of everything that's within our code and ordinance, do it. Fences, she said we didn't regulate, so when the house becomes residential, if this motion passes, then they just have a fence as a residential use. So, okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Would you like to?
Yes, sir. I live right next door.
We do have a motion and a second for denial, but you're more than welcome to come and to address us at the podium. Well, we need your name and address. Please come to the podium. And we appreciate you spending some time with us this evening.
My name is Michael Holmes. I live at 849. And Long Point, I've been there since 1987. I lived at 831, which is my father's house on the other side. And they removed all of the trees and all of the grass. it's no grass, it's just gravel. I can't sit on my back porch. My whole house is covered with dust. If it doesn't rain for 6 weeks, when the truck's going in and out, I can't sit on my back porch. When it rains like the last rain we had, when my father takes a shower, the water is that deep in the bathtub, it won't run out. So it's a direct impact of it. They have to do something.
Yes, sir, and this is really your time to address us, but we will do all the mitigation that is allowable under the law. And part of that is drainage. So if he has affected drainage, it will be mitigated. Thank you. We have a motion and a second for denial. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion denied. They will not get the rezoning for commercial. It will stay residential property. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Moving on, Ms. Farrell, to old business. We have lots of things that have been before the board.
No, we're still up in first.
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I skipped the Solana Long Point Senior Living Facility request to add 2 more units. So item number 3 under new business. Ms. Farrell?
Yes. So this is an existing plan development. This is part of the Bell Hall plan development. You all approved a plan some months ago for a retirement community, continuing care retirement community on this property. Highlighted on the map, it's located just behind the old River office building. The request that you do have in front of you is to add 4 cottages to the property. If we could go to the plans, please. Okay, so this is the currently approved plan, and so the request in front of you is to add 2 units right here, and then 2 units on top of this building that was already planned for, right here. And that's I'm sorry, go one more. Okay, so that's what's in front of you for consideration. That's how the site plan would change. It would be required to go back through in front of DRB for consideration if it was approved by town council. The planning commission recommended approval of this amendment request by a vote of 6 to 1, and the planning committee had a failed motion for denial. Therefore, there's no recommendation coming to you from planning committee.
Thank you very much.
Motion to deny, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second for denial. Any questions from council? Roll call the vote for me, please. Ms. Barrett.
Mr. Brimmer is absent. Mr. Bustos?
No.
Mr. Bustos votes no.
Wait a minute.
It's a motion to deny.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Bustos votes yes.
Yes.
Mr. Carrier?
No.
Mr. Carrier votes no. Mr. Garch?
No.
Mr. Garch votes no. Mr. Haney?
Yes.
Mr. Haney votes yes. Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Mr. Owens votes yes. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Smith votes no. Mayor Page?
Okay, I'm a bit confused.
Motion to deny. Yes
Okay.
is for denial, no is for openness.
Thank you very much. So, one more time for that.
Yes is to agree to the denial request, no would be to oppose the request for denial.
Thank you very much. And I did not have anyone signed up to speak, so we have already called for the vote, and I will vote no, so the motion fails. It's a tie. Moving on to old business.
Excuse me, that's my mistake. I'm the applicant. I didn't know I had to sign up as a speaker since I'm the applicant. Usually the applicant's called up.
I understand. The issue was we didn't know you were here, and no one asked to have any questions answered by the applicant. That's usually how we would either have you sign up or we would ask if anyone had questions of the applicant. So we have had the vote, and the vote has failed. So,
Which means we're denied or we're not?
what's a tie? Mr. Pagliarini?
All right, that motion fails.
So now, there is an opportunity for another motion if it would behoove the council, and then they could, if a motion and a second were made, I would be more than willing to have them ask you questions as the applicant. No motion to put forth. Thank you, sir. Apologize for the misunderstanding that you couldn't sign up to speak. Right, I understand. Moving on to old business. Item number 1 is the final reading of a Central Mount Pleasant.
Yes, you have two items on your agenda with respect to this request. The first one is the request to amend the plan development ordinance, and the second would be the development agreement. We had a public hearing on that earlier this evening. As was explained with the public hearing announcement earlier, there are no changes to the proposed uses for the property. This is actually just a plan change to the plan development map for the property with respect to hamlet and neighborhood tract land. So it's in front of you this past month, and they did receive first reading.
Move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Questions, Mr. Bustos?
Yeah, and just to review the bidding on this, this is reduce the number of residential units and just moved some green space around, so there's actually a reduction of residential units.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Garch?
I'll be abstaining on this item and the next item.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second for approval of item number 1, or was it 1 and 2? Mark, I apologize.
I will amend my motion to include 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And the second? So we have a motion and a second to amend to include 1 and 2. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And 1 abstain.
Final reading, ordinance number 16107, an ordinance providing for a third amendment to the Plan Development District ordinance pertaining to an approximately 109.04 acre tract of land known as Central Mount Pleasant by revising the sketch plan and trip generation summary. Final reading, ordinance number 16108, an ordinance providing for the Fifth Amendment to the Hassel Tract Development Agreement, ordinance 07031 pertaining to Central Mount Pleasant.
Item number 3 is the final reading of the piece of property that the...
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the changes to the property that the State Ports Authority is building on. Any other comments? All in favor?
Wait, ma'am?
Yes, I'm sorry, I looked that way, I didn't see you.
That's fine. Ms. Farrell, if I understand, where this says, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, allow up to 75 feet in building height, I believe there was a restriction to 4 stories?
That's right.
Okay, so there is a restriction.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for approval. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Its final reading, ordinance number 16109, an ordinance providing for an amendment to the Bell Hall Plan Development District ordinance pertaining to an approximately 15-acre portion of an approximately 97.81 acre tract of land identified by TMS number 537-000041, located off of Shipping Lane, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book BV, page 120, by rezoning from LI Light Industrial District to ED Economic Development District, and to allow up to 75 feet in building height.
Thank you. We had a request earlier on item number 4 to defer the annexation of the property at 17 and Old Georgetown.
Move for deferral up to 90 days.
Yes, they did, I'm sorry, they did clarify afterwards that they would like at least 60 days, so.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second for a deferral for up to 90 days. Mr. Carey, you have a question?
Just explain to me how the 2 of these, the one we rejected before, can come back together at a later time.
I'm sorry, I think.
The rezoning.
Council's going to have to address that question for me.
The matter was denied on the zoning. I'm not sure there's really a way that it could be, unless there was another zoning where that matter was brought back up by some procedural method. Given the deadlines that we have, I'm just not sure that it can happen. I hope that answers your question. I just don't see a way.
So procedurally, the prevailing party could not put it back on if that would have had to been done already?
For reconsideration, just so everyone understands, typically in a reconsideration, it has to be brought forward by someone on the side that voted for or the winning side, and it should be done at that meeting. Okay?
So it's not a continuation of one council meeting to another?
We've looked at that, and Robert's rules are specific that in a session like this, it should be at the same meeting.
Okay.
But the property owner is here, so for clarification, Ms. Farrell, could the property owner come back, since we have a 90-day hold now on the annexation, could they come back to us and request a waiver for the 1 year and reapply for the zoning again?
They could, yes, they could. I mean, obviously, that couldn't be accomplished within 90 days, but I will point out with respect to annexation, that 6-month timeframe that we were stuck on earlier this evening does not apply with an annexation. So that could, if council wanted to entertain a waiver and reapplication occur with the zoning, could wait until a zoning action could come back through.
So, Mr. Pagliarini, just for clarity, would the action to defer for up to 90 days offer the applicant the time and the opportunity to come before us? Or would we need to extend that for a longer period?
I guess there'd have to be the waiver, and then it'd have to go back through planning process. It's just 90 days, certainly not, but I guess if it was further deferred beyond that.
It could be. So the 90-day deferral at least give
We'll
the
come back to
opportunity for them to come and see if there's any consideration for granting a waiver to reapply. And so at least, if they needed to do another extension on the annexation, they could request such.
Thank you very much. And since the applicant is here, I'm sure your staff and your office would be glad to clarify with that if they'd like to contact you for clarity.
That's my question.
We can do
Okay.
that.
So nothing comes back to council, it comes back through you?
The
On
waiver,
both?
no, the waiver would need to come in front of town council. They can obviously submit it
okay.
through me, through staff. And then if we received that within this next month, we would present the request for a waiver to you at your February meeting.
And then it would go back through Planning Commission, Planning Committee, and Town Council.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion for deferral. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, Mr. Garch, did you have a comment? I didn't see.
The deferral of just the annexation for up to 90 days?
Yes.
Is that the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
And that was at the request of the property owner.
Right.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the final reading of another annexation. This one is in Bulls Bay.
Madam Mayor, I move for approval of 5, 6, 7, and 8, all annexations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for final approval of all the last 4 items, and those are all annexation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 16112, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.22 acre tract of land known as Lot 32, as shown on the plat recorded in Book EG, page 109, the Charleston County RMC office, whose street address is 4251 True Blue Court, located in Rice Fields in Bowling Bay, identified by TMS number 63200000112. Final reading, ordinance number 16113, ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 0.477 acre tract of land known as Lot 48, Block A, as shown on the plat recorded in Book EA, page 87, in the Charleston County RMC office, whose street address is 3708 River Station Court, located in River Station Subdivision, KNA Darrow Creek Plantation, identified by TMS number 59608000050. Final reading, ordinance number 16114, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.73 acre tract of land known as PTLT4, as shown in the plat recorded in Book B43, page 391, in the Charleston County RMC office, whose street address is 1591 South Carolina Highway 41, located in Laurel Hill Subdivision, west side approximately 400 feet south of Causey Road, and identified by TMS number 58300000100. Final reading, ordinance number 16115, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.35 acre tract of land known as Lot 2A, Block A, as shown in a plat recorded in Book S14, page 180, in the Charleston County RMC office, whose street address is 1134 Darrell Place, located in Yellow Hall subdivision, identified by TMS number 58000000125.
Thank you very much. I would ask due to the late hour, if we have a committee report that did not meet, or if you have a written report, would you please submit it unless you have action? And I think the first one we have, Mr. Bustos, it's you for Human Resources.
Right, and I didn't have an action on, but we spent a lot of money. I don't know if you want me to read it, but I can certainly.
Gary, you're doing a great job, and I think you're doing fine.
Okay.
We don't need to read it, and you're going to be spending some more money. So
No
you're
problem.
doing a fine job in your committee, and I'll turn it right over to Mr. Bustos.
And to be very brief, Human Resources did meet, and we had a number of updates to the town's Human Resources guidelines, and they will be addressed under the resolution. You've been provided a copy under Council New Business, item 11A2.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. Every once in a while, we got to go tweak it. Patriots Point Development Authority did meet. We are moving closer to some resolution with the lease between Mike Bennett and the state of South Carolina. Planning Committee, Bob Brimmer is not here, so we will have his report submitted to the clerk. PLJ did meet. I'm going to turn it over to you. Mr. North, if you don't mind.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a ordinance for your consideration later in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Public Services Committee with no meeting, rec no meeting.
Now, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can we remind everybody about the,
Absolutely. We have a survey that is going on now, and we have a public hearing on Thursday.
Correct.
Can you tell me the time of the?
6 o'clock?
So we have, and that will
At
be
Lang,
held at
at
Lang.
And we've already had over almost 800 respondents to the survey, so I think we're going to have a good turnout for that.
Well, it's very, very important to encourage everyone, share it on your Facebook. We want to make sure that we understand as we enter into understanding what the needs of the community are, what the wants are for the community are, for sure, for the rec moving forward. And I'm going to turn it over to Brad for the Waterfront Gateway Sector Planning Study for a very brief presentation on the potential for a new bid.
It'll be brief because I'm not going to do the presentation unless anybody wants to see it. I'm just going to go through a report, which is the one action item from last week. Staff presented the Waterfront Gateway Sector Planning Study for consideration and funding improvements related to the long-term development impacts on nearby intersections. The purpose of the study was to identify a range of development scenarios within the Waterfront Gateway District, assess the range of transportation infrastructure impacts that may occur, identify improvements and policies to respond to the development impacts, and evaluate costs and an allocation methodology to fund necessary improvements. The committee discussed the study findings and recommendations, the status of various existing and planned developments within the district, and the expected impacts of the lease agreements related to the Patriots Point Development Authority parcels. They also discussed funding options to include the study recommendation of the Municipal Improvement District. Based upon the allocation methodology proposed and anticipated funding participation by the town, the committee recommended the town council direct staff to move forward with design and cost refinement in order to implement a Municipal Improvement District, also called a MID, with the town participating at a $2 million level. And that was presented in the form of a motion to council.
Thank you. Mr. Haney?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that council approve moving forward with this, including the study and the feasibility of some of the items that we talked about. I felt like this was properly vetted in the committee. If I remember correctly, there is no longer consideration of a roundabout in this area because of wetlands, property takings, all that.
The impacts were deemed greater than what...
Second, I think you made a motion, right?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
Now we can discuss.
Okay, yeah, we have a motion and a second, and no, unfortunately, much more remiss to the mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant, there's no roundabout at this time being considered, so we have a motion and a second for approval of moving forward with the study. Mr. Bustos?
I just have one question. This isn't approving a MID, this is just the study of the MID, right?
Absolutely.
And Patriots Point, has that MID expired yet?
Yes, sir.
It has?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, and I was remiss to say earlier in my Patriots Point report, we did get news from West Palm Beach that they will be accepting the Clamor for a reef off of the coast of Palm Beach, Florida. So we have a motion and a second for approval of the study of the MID. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, and the ayes have it.
Madam Mayor, before we leave transportation, if we, since that person was here earlier tonight, difference on Grassy Creek, if we can get some information to their HOA on what we did in our committee about asking the county that we're moving this up from 6 to 3, just get that information to them, greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, we can take care of that, no problem. Administrator's report, Mr. Moore?
No items.
Thank you. Under council new business, the first item is a first reading of an ordinance to provide for a moratorium on certain multifamily structures.
Mayor Page, I'm in the interest of time here, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is gonna wind up a 4-4 vote, that we would not be able to approve, nor would we be able to deny this thing tonight, because it'd be a 4-4 vote. And what I'd like to do is suggest that we defer it to next month and take it up then when there will be, I assume there'll be a full council.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. The challenge for that is I would need a motion to defer, a
Okay,
motion and a
well,
second, and we need to vote on the deferral.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we defer this to next month.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Can you roll call the vote on the
I had a
motion to
question.
defer? Yes.
Joe, what do you mean by certain?
Say again?
What do you mean by the word certain multifamily structure?
Well, that's not the
Well, that
point, that's not the question now. The question is for deferral. We're not actually.
I have a question on the item on the agenda.
Well, how we wrote it was how we directed, because I believe it was limited to apartments, is that correct, sir?
Correct.
And that's why we use that, and in the ordinance, it limits it to apartments, so.
Okay, I didn't,
Not all multi.
just all multifamily,
apartments.
just apartment, okay.
Yeah, not-
Thank you. Got it.
not
That's why I just needed a definition of the word certain.
Okay, so to move forward with a vote up or down, we would need to have a favorable motion to defer. So we'll roll call the vote.
Mr. Owens, were you the second on that?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Brimmer is absent. Mr. Bustos?
Yes.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier votes yes. Mr. Garge?
Aye.
Mr. Garge votes yes. Mr. Haney?
Aye.
Mr. Haney votes yes. Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Owens votes yes. Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Smith votes yes. Mayor Page?
No.
Mayor Page votes no.
Motion passes. So we have a motion to defer, and unfortunately, I didn't have clarification on just until next month.
Next month.
It's okay, we'll be back for us for next month. Item number 2 is the adoption, Mr. Bustos. I can say your name, I promise.
I move for approval of resolution amending the Town of Mount Pleasant Human Resources Guidelines.
Again, thank you for your work on that motion. A second for approval of the changes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Item number 3 is the resolution from the Planning Commission to review studies. And since Mr. Brimmer is not here, Mr. Garge, I would ask that you, can we have a motion to?
I move for the adoption.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for adoption. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. And the ayes have it.
Madam Mayor, members of council, quickly on this, staff has been working, as you know, based on the timeline that you adopted, to prepare documents to assist the Planning Commission. You'll find those documents in your council mailboxes. It's on the agenda for the Planning Commission on the 18th, and they'll have about just shy of 60 days to bring you back their recommendations as required by state law.
Thank you. Item number 4 is the ordinance to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant zoning code to include public art standards. And Mr. Smith, do you have some information on that?
Sure. Mayor and council members, after reviewing the draft provided by our legal team, legal department, and speaking with our hardworking staff, it seems apparent to me that we need some additional input from staff and work on that ordinance as it was submitted. So with that being said, I'd recommend that I'll return to my original motion from the Police Judicial Legal Committee to task legal to revise the present draft with input from staff and present it to the Police Judicial Legal Committee next month with revised, well-vetted ordinance consistent with staff and legal recommendations and direction is my motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Madam Mayor, Mark, I'll ask you, if you don't mind, if you could consider also allowing our CAP to be involved in this, cultural arts folks. Certainly that's what they do, and I feel a lot more comfortable having, people like that that are already involved in the arts, working with staff to try and come up with something for us.
Thank you. I didn't want to cut you off. Exactly the sentiments behind deferring this to allow all of that vetting to happen. They present themselves at Police Judicial Legal. It wasn't included in that motion, so absolutely. And we have all publicly thanked CAP for their. So, and I think it's important that my motion get amended to specifically include content neutral ordinance.
Thank you. Would you amend yours as well?
I amend my motion to include that, yes.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. And Mr. Carey, you have a question?
Just a question to David about the ordinance that we were presented. Now, is that just some sort of a draft?
Right, what came out of PLJ, I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, I think there were two basic concerns. One was the definition of sign, which was discussed as far as the broadness and specifying some difference between what is a sign and what is art. Then, part two of that is if something classifies as art, is there a process or procedure in which to approve it? That's what I understood.
Correct, that could possibly include.
And that's what this accomplishes. Along the way, I think there are several things to consider, such as area to consider, of course, the definitions themselves, the process for approval, whether that includes an appointed body or the elected body, and an appeal process. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts to it that, as legal, we would certainly appreciate a little more opportunity to discuss with staff to make sure that we cover all those bases, and then provide you with those options so that we can at least make those options a little more simple for you.
Because you have CAP included in here now.
That was part of the discussion we had, yes, sir, and some of the, I don't want to get too far afield, but as far as the approval process, one thing we have to consider is what is CAP's authority in the approval process. As Mr. Smith said, content neutral, we can't make this any approval process a referendum on whether people like it or don't like it.
Right.
That's the big sin. And if, in fact, CAP is involved, it could be on a consultation basis. We do have some concern as to CAP's authority, ability to hold public hearings, and an appeal. And that's something we're going to vet out with plan.
Okay, there's one more important issue here, and I would remind Mr. Smith and ask you to consider revising one more time your motion. As we discussed in PLJ, the issue was to have first reading tonight of the ordinance that was presented at the Police Legal Judicial with a pending ordinance doctrine to protect what is there at this time. So that's where,
Still in the discussion stage, all of us heard tonight, one of our newer, young, small business owners opening up on Coleman Boulevard, who could potentially be looking for a CO that could be delayed if the existing mural is deemed in violation of our sign ordinance. And I would just like to figure out a way, based on his request that he said here tonight, if y'all remember that early in the meeting, I don't want us to delay the opening of a new business in our town while intentionally slowing this process down so we can all have a chance to fully vet it and get on board with do we want it and how do we do it and what's the best way to do it. But let's make sure that we don't have an unintended consequence where we're hurting a small business owner.
Mark, and I don't think you quite understand. He'll get a CO. He doesn't have to have a sign to have a CO. He was asking for relief to move forward with his sign application.
Right.
I don't believe we can accomplish that, but he doesn't need a sign to have a CO. And I would assure that as Mr. Slade is out there furiously typing away our discussion of public art, that Smoke Barbecue on Coleman Boulevard is opening soon, and they're seeking relief of some sign ordinances.
And the pending ordinance document's going to freeze, I think, everything, right, David?
It might have the adverse effect, meaning of what Mr. Smith is requesting. I think that's your point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nelson.
Question or point, if I may?
Absolutely.
Do I understand from your motion, Mr. Smith, this has nothing to do with current enforcement issues on anything that's been in the paper or not? This is strictly looking at how our ordinance ought to be in the future. Is that right? To our council?
That's what I understand.
So we're not voting tonight on whether we like whatever murals we have in Mount Pleasant right now, or they may be signs. We're talking about going down the road. Is that what we all understand we're voting on? And is that what you intend in your motion?
I'm glad that you have it crystal clear and you have restated it for your own clarification and making sure that all of council members understand it as well.
Okay,
Yes.
so this does not affect any enforcement. Got it. Thank you.
Right, so for clarification, just so I'm sure that I understand your comment, Mr. Haney, it was my understanding that if we included a pending ordinance doctrine in the motion tonight at first reading, enforcement would be delayed until the decision was made at final reading. Is that, Mr. Pagliarini, could you give us a clarification so we're all on board?
Well, I'm not sure what enforcement. I think that's the question. I think the general issue is, under current ordinance, staff is required to continue as is. As to matters that have already, if there is a matter, I'm going to speak specifically, that is in process of enforcement, there is nothing that a pending ordinance now would do to affect that. I don't know if that answers your question then, but
It answers it for me. It was my understanding from staff that what happens with enforcement issues, a decision is made at BOZA. The BOZA minutes are recorded. Once the BOZA minutes are recorded in a public record, then the chairman of the BOZA signs those minutes. That's approximately 30 days. After that, then staff would proceed in the time that is normally deemed. So that might be 30 days, it might be longer than 30 days. That's my understanding. Does that sound about right?
yes, ma'am, and there's a whole host of options for any applicant as well as appeal and all sorts of other things that might be considered.
Awesome, thank you. So everyone clear, we have a motion and a second to move forward. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
One no. Mr. Garch, thank you. All right, we have a need, there's no council old business. We have a need to go into executive sessions for some personnel. And we will possibly be taking some action upon reconvening from executive session. Have a motion and a second for executive session. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, that's fine.
You go ahead.
All right, y'all, just hurry as quick as you can. That's all I ask. Quick as you can.
Enforcement always has discretion. You weren't really clear on this.